Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the April 7th regular meeting of Council. I'd like to first recognize that we are gathered on the traditional territory of the Snuneymuxw First Nation. Our clerk tonight will be Ms. Sheila Gurry. We also have Councillor Manley attending electronically. Tonight's regular meeting of Council is being held in accordance with the Community Charter and Council Procedure Bylaw 2018, number 7272. If during the meeting any member of the gallery has a question regarding an agenda item, please write down your name and the agenda item on the question period sign-up sheet, which is on the table by the double doors to my left. Please note that the Council Procedure Bylaw states questions will only be taken on staff reports, consent items, or other business items. I'm going to read out the standard commentary that we undertake at every meeting now. Before we start the meeting, I would like to take a few moments to remind those who are attending in person about the rules of decorum for all council and committee meetings. A meeting of council is intended to be a place where democracy can freely take place in a respectful and safe manner. The council chambers is a workplace, and there are considerations council and staff must make to ensure that a safe work environment exists in accordance with WorkSafe BC regulations. To support this, disrespectful conduct will not be tolerated, so we ask that there be no cheering, jeering, or other outbursts from the gallery at any time. Although I do make exceptions for those moments when we are congratulating people on achievements or things they have done to assist in our community. This will ensure that anyone speaking, whether it be a delegation, member of council, or staff, is not interrupted and can make their point freely without distraction or fear of ridicule. In instances where a speaker is being inappropriate or has exceeded their time limit, their microphone will be cut off. Similarly, if there are outbursts by any person in the gallery, they will be asked to stop. And if they do not comply, they may be asked to leave as permitted under Section 133 of the Community Charter. If necessary, council may call a recess in order to reset the environment of the council chambers. It is our belief that if everyone is respectful of these basic considerations, this meeting and future meetings will be more effective in furthering the business of the City of Nanaimo. The first item on the agenda is the introduction of late items, Ms. Gurry, and we do have a couple.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, Council. For late items this evening, we have Agenda Item 12F, Covenant Amendment Application Number CA19 for 6340 McRobb Avenue. We're adding a delegation from Scott Mack, Town Site Planning, Inc. We are also adding under notice of motion from Councillor Hemmens regarding the distribution of new supportive housing projects. And that's it, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. Motion for adoption of the agenda is amended. Moved Councillor Thorpe, seconded Councillor Perino. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. A motion for adoption of the minutes is circulated. Moved Councillor Hemmens, seconded Councillor Eastmere. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Mayor's report. I just have a few short items tonight. Firstly, the City of Nanaimo is seeking a volunteer for our design advisory panel. We're recruiting one volunteer member at large position. The panel reviews the form and character of development permit proposals for multifamily, commercial, and industrial developments in relation to the city's design guidelines. It provides independent, objective recommendations to applicants, city staff, and council to improve design that affect the public realm. Successful applicants will have a knowledge of urban design and design principles and possess the skills necessary to assist staff in ensuring that the form and character of future developments meet high-quality standards and the needs of the community. This term is for 3 years until April 2028, or as determined by council. Members may sit in only one committee at a time and must be residents of the City of Nanaimo. Applications can be downloaded from www.nanaimo.ca or picked up from Legislative Services at City Hall, 455 Wallace Street. Completed applications must be submitted by 4 p.m. on Friday, April the 11th, 2025, via mail, hand delivery to Legislative Services, or email to legislative.servicesoffice@nanaimo.ca. Interested applicants are encouraged to review the Design Advisory Panel's mandate and objectives, as well as the meeting schedule on the city website before applying. Now, for hockey fans, you will know that tomorrow night the Nanaimo Clippers will be facing the Cowichan Valley Capitals. It's the first game of this round, and I have, notwithstanding my aversion to gambling in a particularly significant way, have made a bet with the mayor of Cowichan, our friend Mayor Rob Douglas, that he will wear the Nanaimo Clippers jersey if the Capitals are defeated. and I will wear the Cowichan Valley Capitals jersey through the next council meeting in response if we happen to lose. So I'm counting on the Nanaimo Clippers to do their best so that I don't have to sit with the embarrassment of wearing the Capital jersey through a council meeting. Now, on a somewhat serious note, and this is entirely apolitical, it goes without saying that this country, and indeed the world arguably, is facing some incredible challenges right now in terms of international relations. And we are in the middle of a federal election. We have active campaigns by all major parties in this area, and I'm not suggesting to anyone how they vote, but I think it is incredibly important when we look to the South to see that roughly only half of the Americans eligible to vote voted in the last election, that we here in Canada have a particular duty to ensure that we get as high a turnout as is possible to demonstrate that whoever forms the government in this country after April the 28th will know that Canadians are behind them, that we value our electoral system, that we value our democracy, and that we demonstrate our love for that democracy, as I say, by turning out and voting. So please, if you are eligible to vote or can become eligible or registering, I would ask you to do so. It is a duty of citizenship. It is the only thing that protects us from other forms of government that are far less appealing. And so I encourage all of you to remember this between now and April the 28th. Now, we have no presentations. Committee minutes are just for receipt. I'd ask for a motion for adoption of consent items. We will move and second that, and then we can ask for removal of those items that somebody may wish to reconsider. So a motion for adoption, Councillor Hemmons, seconded Councillor Eastmere, and any removals? Councillor Thorpe, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would ask to remove from consent item 10A2, Loudon Park improvements.
10B.
Sorry, 10B2.
10B2. All right, we can vote on the remaining items unless someone else wishes them removed. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Councillor Thorpe, the floor is yours, please.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. So my understanding, and Ms. Gurry will correct me if I'm wrong, is that the recommendation from the Finance and Audit Committee meeting of March 19 is on the floor right now. So I'm going to actually urge Council to consider please defeating this recommendation. And I'm sorry, I apologize that I did miss that March 19 Finance and Audit Committee meeting, and I understand that other councillors were absent as well. So I was somewhat surprised at this recommendation coming forward because it is different from the original direction that I understood Council was supporting. The recommendation that's on the floor calls for what I would call a bare bones improvement to the park. It is limited basically to a replacement of the boat shed. And I have concerns about the appearance of that and also the lack of amenities that would be associated with it. In my opinion, we could do better, much better, and we should do better for this park. So if option B that's on the floor is defeated, I will be putting forward the original option A, which was discussed by Council. This would allow for upgrades and accessibility to be improved to the park. It would include a type of community center which would serve multiple purposes in addition to the improved boat storage area. I think it would be something that the community can really be proud of, and I know it's something that SFN also supported. So I note that the design is also something that can still be tweaked in future, and if other opportunities come forward for relocation of buildings on the site, that can be considered. But I don't think we should shut the door to making this a much improved facility. Loudon Park is more than just a storage shed for boats. It is a very popular public place, especially in the summer, and it deserves to be improved and expanded. And that's why I would like to vote down this, again, what I call bare bones option, and go back to a more fulsome improvement to the park, which I feel is deserved. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you. I too missed that meeting, and as Councillor Thorpe has said, I too am in favor of the larger thing. North End does not have very many facilities at all. Oliver Woods was mostly done through private dollars. We don't have much investment from city dollars in the North End, and they're sadly lacking, and I think this would fill a huge void. As stated, SFN was strongly supportive of this as their kids are on that lake. We've got lots of young kids on there, and I think it can only help improve, and when we do things just partially, we learn to regret it later. So I will be voting against this motion, and if it fails, voting in favor of the recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Gesselbrock.
Thank you. I am in favor of this option. The option A that is being talked about, that's an improvement. I almost fell off my chair when I actually looked at it closer. It's proposing to put a large building in the main area where the trees are of Loudon Park. Basically, 50% of the trees would be removed, and when you'd pull into Loudon Park with this new enhanced facility, you basically wouldn't see any trees, and you'd be walking into a building. So you'd have to walk around the building to get to the beach. The option that is being spoken out by Councillor Thorpe and Councillor Armstrong is one that's actually come almost 3 times more expensive than the original $4 million would have allotted for it, at a cost of $11 million. So for $11 million, we would basically have a clear cut in Loudon Park and have no park and no money left over. And I think there's much other higher priorities to be spending that money on. And I think the majority of the public would be very shocked to the degree of how that would change the nature of the park. And I believe very strongly that we should be supporting our rowing club and canoe and kayak club. And I think that because Loudon Park is such a postage stamp of a park and there's very limited green space, we need to be expanding this park. And there's lots of opportunities to expand it and put the facilities needed to really do right by the rowing and canoe and kayak community, and also not lose a very precious piece of green space that the community has been using for a very long time. And so I strongly oppose the second option, but I'm in favor of the option that's currently on the table, and I think what it allows us to do is address the immediate needs of the rowing community and canoe and kayak club committee by putting the boat storage facility on top of the old tennis courts where it currently is. And the improvements to the washroom facilities would be directly on the old footprint. So there's a great solution. And if we do want more community amenity space, we can put that in future expansions at a later date. But the other option is completely unacceptable, and so I'll be supporting this one. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hemmens is trying to get herself on, and it's not
I think it's on there. I think, yep.
showing up.
Thank you, Your Worship. I want to say a huge thank you to everyone who came forward. I can't remember the last time we had 10 delegations on something, so clearly this is a matter of importance to the community. I want to thank everyone for coming out as well tonight. A couple of questions for staff. I just heard that SFN supports this option. Do we have that in writing? I'm sorry, when I say this option, Councillor Armstrong was speaking of the grander option, the larger building.
I'm sorry, I'd have to go back, and I'm looking over at Ms. Osborne. I recall that this was discussed at our protocol meetings with SFN, but this is going back a number of years, and I do not recall if we have anything in writing beyond those discussions.
Yeah, and through His Worship to Councillor Hemmens, I'm the same as our CAO. I don't have anything in writing that I can speak to specifically, but I do believe that the discussions occurred.
So the discussions occurred, but we don't know if SFN supports one option over another. We don't have anything in writing that says SFN wants us to do A, B, or C. Just SFN Correct. Supports the concept of improved paddling facilities on Long Lake.
Correct. I'm not 100% sure that we have provided them with the second option to review.
Okay. Thank you. The second piece I want to clarify is Oliver Woods being built mostly with private dollars. That's the first I've ever heard that. Could I have some clarification, please?
Oliver Woods was built in part with a donation from the developer of Longwood, but I believe it was 2 million of the overall cost, 1 or 2 million of the overall cost. So it was substantially from city that provided the capital to build that.
Substantially from the city that paid the capital. Okay, thank you for that clarification. So I watched the presentations and I watched the debate, and I'm going to support the motion on the floor. And I want to challenge Councillor Thorpe's assertion that this option is limited to the replacement of a boat shed. I completely disagree. This gets us better bathrooms, safer storage for boats. It takes down fewer trees. To Councillor Gesselbrock's point, if we do the smaller footprint, there's nothing to say that we can't add on later. I spoke to previous Councillor Turley. He sat in the background behind all the presenters at the last Finance and Audit Committee, and I just asked for his opinion. He was very involved in the initial push from the Rotary to have this park redeveloped, and he said unequivocally he supports the option on the floor. All of that, plus this is a $6 million cost savings when we know we have an RCMP building coming, we know we have the South End Community Centre coming. So, and wrap that into the Raven Song referendum just failing, I think there's a sense from the community that good enough is good enough. I'm seeing in this option the needs met of the community who came to speak to us. We have safer boat storage, we have better accessible washrooms, et cetera, et cetera. So that is where I land on this one, and I want to thank everyone. It was a really great debate to watch. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Perino?
Thank you, Your Worship, and some similar comments. We had 10 speakers come that day, and it was a very fulsome discussion by everyone. It's important that everyone knows that the building that was in the first option is almost $11 million. The option number 2, which is on the floor, is $6.5 million. The difference is that after money that we have in our strategic, or no, I think it's the Special Initiatives Reserve. Is that correct? Okay. We have to have the additional funds of $6 million to do the first option and 1.8 to do the second option. And in this economic times, that's a huge difference. Now, don't get me wrong. I think it would be incredible if we could put the more elaborate building on the land, absolutely. And I think it can be done over time, but the most important thing that we heard that day was we need a building that protects our boats. We need a new bathroom, and we need it today. The longer that we take to come to a decision, the longer we take to build, the less protection those boats in that water have. And for me, as much as I would absolutely prefer to have the more elaborate building, the one that obviously gives us more opportunities for events and so forth in the future, I think that today, given our economic environment, we need to take care of the boats and all of the other equipment that is housed there. We have to do that first. So for me, I'm going to still stand strong on the option that we have on the floor today.
Councillor Manley?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm going to stand with the option on the table today as well for many of the reasons that we've already heard. For the financial reasons, we heard from many people at the Finance and Audit Committee meeting, both from the boat using community that said that option 2 would serve their needs and we would have upgraded washrooms, but also from many of the people that use the park that live in that area. And it's already a very well used park. It's a small postage stamp piece of property, a tiny park, and I like the look of option 1. I think it's a fantastic looking building, but the siting of it right, where it was, not just the trees, but so close to the beach and the picnic area and the areas for families to sit in the shade on a hot sunny day and watch the kids go and play in the water. And I heard loud and clear from the neighborhood, the people that live in that surrounding area, that this is a well-used park and an overused park. And when we plan and we put buildings and site buildings, it's important that we respect the uses that are already taking place on the property. And I think that the siting of the option that we're voting on today is a better siting for boat storage. And I agree that we need to look at options for expanding this park in the future, because this is an area that's going to grow. The country club area is a secondary urban core, and we're going to see more apartments in that area, and this park is only going to become more well used. And I look forward to seeing options in the future where we can expand other amenities that are attached to this park. So I'm gonna continue to support the option on the table. Thank you, and thank you to everybody that came and spoke to the Finance and Audit Committee.
Thank you. I'm going to go to Councillor Brown, who hasn't spoken yet, and then I'll go to Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Your Worship. I won't be supporting the option on the floor. I think there's a temptation there, obviously, due to the financial argument. It is significantly less. However, I think for me, what matters is putting this in the context of the use over its lifespan. And I remember asking a couple times Mr. Harding about other options for not the building location, but the type of activity that happens on the water. And he indicated that many other places had been explored, but ultimately this was the lake that was best suited for the type of activity that was occurring. And so with that in mind, a growing city has grown significantly in my lifetime living here. Undoubtedly, the sport will continue to grow, maybe in popularity, but definitely by just pure population. And so with no other location that's well suited for it, I think when you make this type of investment, it makes sense to make the investment that is going to be well suited for the current need, but also hopefully the future need. And I think a first-class facility that suits that need will provide longevity. I think we've got lots of examples, or at least I think so, where I could point to where the cheaper option went with at the time, and it ages quickly, both in the type of facility it is, but also its ability to accommodate. We know that we need way more Oliver Woods centers, and that's not just the gym space, it's the meeting space as well. There will always be an argument for those big type of facilities because you save money doing that, but what you lose is neighborhood facilities. And unfortunately we've lost a few of those recently, and we don't have access to them. And so I think it makes sense both for the current community need and the size of the recreation activities that are occurring, that is not just paddling. There's a genuine space need. I think when I think about who's not even born that might use this facility and train in it and be on the lake, and it's the only lake that can really accommodate it, it's a no-brainer to me to go for the better facility that will provide better over the length of its life. So for that, the luxurious position of arguing for something that, if it doesn't go my way, still results in something being built for the community is a good one. However, I think it would be misguided to go with the option on the floor, and I would hope that it's defeated and have the opportunity to vote on the greater motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Thorpe.
If I may, Your Worship, I'd like to respond to a couple of the comments that have been made, and I appreciate the debate. It's a good one. First of all, I've also spoken to some residents of the Loudon Park area, and to be honest, and I mean no disrespect, but I was very disappointed at the opinions voiced by some individuals who were very outspoken that they did not want to see park improvements or expansions. It was their quiet little park, and they wanted it to remain so. I don't think that's being fair to the community at large. This is not a hidden gem, but it's a smaller gem in our city, which is extremely popular during the summer with users, and we need to put some money into it. Regarding SFN support, I base my earlier statement on minutes of a February 3rd council meeting, which I have in front of me, which stated in writing that SFN has previously option A had previously received support from Snuneymuxw First Nation. I take the veracity of our meeting minutes seriously, and so I base my statement on that. As far as spending, yes, taxpayers are very concerned about council and district spending right now, and I don't blame them, but we are not going to the taxpayers for option A. This money will come totally from reserves, and I think this is a very good use of these reserves, and so I support that. Yes, the paddling groups, and I see some of them here tonight representing the groups, and I thank them for being here. I'm sure they're quite willing to accept option B as the secondary option because, quite frankly, they're desperate for any improvement to their facilities at the park. But given the choice, would they rather have a longer-term, more significant investment in the park and more significant improvements to not only their facility but the surrounding area? I'm sure they would. So why settle for second best or second choice when we have the ability within our budget to provide something really significant that the community can be proud of? So I would rather see, rather than just supporting basic needs in a short-term situation, looking at a more fulsome long-term investment in this community facility. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Perino?
Thank you, Your Worship. A couple of questions, if I might, through to staff. Something that Councillor Brown had said, the option 1 or 2, or as Councillor Thorpe has said, option A or B, are the buildings basically the same size for the storage area for the boats?
Through Your Worship, to Councillor Perino. I'll have to look at the last page here. The storage area itself.
Sorry to put
No,
that on
good
you.
question.
It's a very interesting comment from Councillor Brown, and I just wanted to make sure, because that does make a difference, particularly for the different groups in the area.
The storage in option 1 is considerably larger than it would be in storage 2, or in option 2.
It is considerably larger.
It is larger, yes.
For the boats as well.
For the boats area.
Okay.
Correct.
Thank you. Okay, so my next question is, regarding the funding, my understanding was that the option 1, or A, is that we require an additional $6 million compared to 1.8 that we require for option B. That's a considerable amount of money. Is that correct, that every bit of that comes from a reserve fund that we currently already have, so we do not have to tax the taxpayer at all?
Laura, can you answer that?
Ms.
Sorry,
Mercer,
and
please.
I didn't even think of course, yes.
Ms. Mercer,
The person who knows. Sorry, Ms. Mercer. That's
Through
right.
your worship to Councillor Perino, that is correct. Under the recommendation that came through on the Finance and Audit Committee meeting
Yes.
back in March,
Yeah.
$4 million comes from the Special Initiatives Reserve.
Yes, we knew about that.
And then $2,169,373 would come from Council Strategic Infrastructure Reserve.
So let me just take you back, Ms. Mercer. The total cost of option 1, or A, is $10.8 million.
Correct.
So that will automatically have the $4 million coming from the Special Initiatives Reserve, plus the 2.169. Where does the balance come? Because that still brings in a balance of over $4 million that we have to.
Because the increase was $6,169,373.
Yes? Does
$4
that-
million comes from the Special Initiatives Reserve, and the remaining $2,169,373 comes from the Strategic Infrastructure Reserve. They're very similar names, but they're two different reserves.
Yes. So you're saying there's no tax dollars required for option 1 at all? No tax dollars obviously then required?
The downside, I believe, in the report was that you have less money to put towards other projects.
Other projects. If I may, just one more question, asking Ms. Olson, or how soon would we be able to, I'm concerned about getting the shovel in the ground. These people need to have protection for their boats. They're very expensive. When are we going to start construction of either option 1 or 2? And does that make a difference to go to option 1?
Through your worship, to Councilor Perino, option one was a complete set of diagrams that went to a building permit. There was a building permit issued for option one, and then that permit expired. If we went back with option one, the drawings are still good, but they would have to be updated because there's been a code change. Option two went to design diagrams. We'd have to have a more wholesome or a complete set of drawings completed for that, architectural drawings, and then we would go to the permit process from that point. So option one's a little more shovel-ready than option two would be.
Okay. Well, I can't believe I'm doing this, but you know what? I was not aware, or just didn't get into my brain that option number one was considerably larger. And that is the case. And that's important to the different groups who bring their boats there. That's an important piece. The fact that we don't have to go to the taxpayer for more, we have the money, and the fact that it's shovel-ready, I will in fact change my opinion and vote for it.
Thank you. Councillor Gesserbach, Councillor Armstrong. Sorry, Councillor.
The option I think that Councillor Perino is talking about is $11 million, and that's not the option that's on the floor. The option on the floor is $6 million. The $11 million option is going to require an additional $6 million to build, and $5 million of that is coming from surplus that we taxed for last year that we have extra because it wasn't spent. That money can be spent on a whole slew of other higher priorities than the boat storage if we choose to. And I think that it's really important that this is taxpayer money that is coming out of people's pockets. And I think that it would be great if we could pull up a photo of the actual footprint of option two, which basically is putting of the $11 million option, which is almost 3 times over the initial budget, and it could be more expensive once we get into the actual, building of it. The footprint of that building basically takes up more than 50% of the usable park space. So when I hear discussion about we're expanding the park, that is not accurate. We are not expanding the park if we go for the more expensive thing. We're actually eliminating a huge usable area of green space in a very limited spot in town. And you can see right there, that is right in the middle where all the trees are that people utilize. So when you come up in the parking lot, you can see behind it, you'd pull up, and instead of looking through all those trees at Long Lake at Loudon Park, you'd be looking at a giant building, which not everybody has access. So you want to go to the beach and go into the green space and play and run with your dog? You can't because there's a building there. And there's other options than having to do this. We can have the amenity space. We can expand Loudon Park into neighboring residential areas that are neighboring properties that there is interest in going that direction, and put that amenity space there on a footprint of a prior building, as opposed to removing 29 trees. And the majority of them are ones that will probably be here for another 100 years if we just let them be. 29 trees of like the 60 trees that are at that park, and those are the biggest ones in there. People would be absolutely shocked and outraged, I think, if we went forward with that bigger option. Not only because that it's 3 times more expensive than $11 million, but because it is removing a significant area of a very well-used park and limiting it to, and so I don't think we're hemmed into this option, and I do think that we can either go with this option that's on the floor right now, where there's a temporary solution where the needs of the rowing community can be met immediately with the protection of their boats, and not put a giant, large part of storage shed in that footprint, and then look at expanding later on down the road when we can expand the park from this like small little postage stamp state and put more community space down the road. And I want to make that very clear, and thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Armstrong?
Oh, just my apologies, I did have the wrong information. It was, the city only paid $10 million for Oliver Woods, which I find interesting because that was only 14 years ago. And now to build a similar, we're looking at $115 million. So now to me is the time to build this. It's not later because it's going to cost us so much more money, and it's sadly needed. A lot of that area you're talking about, I don't see many people in that area sitting under those trees. There's a few, but not that many. So again, I'm going to stay with voting against this, and if it fails, hoping that option 1 passes. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Eastmere?
Thank you. I definitely see the desire for a building that thinks about the future use of this park and the need for more space, for more amenity space and rentable community spaces. But I think that the option for Loudon Park right now, where we're looking at building the most critically needed pieces, which are the safe boat storage and upgraded washrooms, I think that the motion that's on the floor right now really addresses those critical needs. And then I am interested in future conversations to expand the park and potentially find a proper place for a larger community amenity space that doesn't take up what is essentially the entire footprint of the public space of this park. And we already know that the parking that exists there right now doesn't even really serve the needs of what's currently happening in this park. So I think if we were to build this larger space at this current moment with the current parking configuration, it's a real mismatch there. And really what we've heard from the rowing community is that they need safe, secure boat storage. And so I think we're at a time when we need to be considering function most of all, and we also know that we have other huge community projects that we need this money for. And so yes, this money is sitting in reserves, but it is tax money that we need to be carefully considering where best we can put that. And we have some major priority items, and the major priority item for Loudon Park is safe boat storage and upgraded washrooms, and we can do that with the option that's on the floor currently, and then think about expanding the park and finding more amenity space when we do that. So I'll be voting in favor of the option that's on the floor currently. Thank you.
Thank you. I have not changed my mind since this last game before council. And I'm appreciative of Councillor Thorpe bringing this forward for reconsideration. I would have done it myself. And I'm also very pleased that he reminded all of us what my recollection was with respect to the support of Snuneymuxw First Nation for this particular project. I have heard concern about the 29 trees that will come down, and I'm not for a moment diminishing the importance of 29 significant fir. But I contrast that with the thousands of users who have only one place in this community which is acknowledged by everyone for the kind of aquatic activities that take place. I said it before, I'll say it again in case anyone missed it. You can't do this in Mount Benson, you can't do it in Westwood Lake, you can't do it in Departure Bay, you can't do it in Swilana Lagoon. So this is the place, the only place in the city of Nanaimo. And as Councillor Brown and others have pointed out, this is one of the fastest growing regions in the country. If you wish to build what some have referred to or provide a temporary solution, I have to ask, what is the sense in spending $5, $6 million, whatever the total cost will be for the option that is on the table now? What is the sense of spending that to then to build what, with great respect, I still call a tin shed? What is the sense of doing that when you're going to turn around in a number of years and try and build something that will be adequate to the changed circumstances which are occurring day after day after day? From my perspective, when we talk about the use of this park, let us remember how this park is used. Everyone seems focused, or many councillors seem focused on the use in the summertime and how you have to be able to see your kids on the beach and all of those things. With respect, the park gets intensive use from children and others in the summertime. The users who are here tonight gathered in this council chamber are using this essentially all year round. All year round. If I thought there was a better solution in terms of another property, another space, I'd say fine. If council is interested in acquiring lands, and we probably shouldn't be talking along those lines in an open council meeting, then it's going to look even sillier that we acquire more lands to surround an inadequate building in time. Let us build the building that meets the needs, that will give the community some sense of pride, that will have other uses, and will provide more than adequate, hopefully, storage necessary for this particular group of users. If people are worried about crowds in the summertime, I have to say bluntly, the other ratepayers in this community who don't swim in the lake have helped pay for tens of millions of dollars worth of swimming pools in this community that they can use year-round. So I think, given the numbers of groups, including the Child Development Center and others, the kinds of activities that were outlined so well when the delegations appeared before us last time, when you look at the fact that there was only one place we can do this, when we consider the thousands of users, versus building what, as I say, was referred to as a temporary solution, which will not be architecturally pleasing. No one's going to be kayaking on Long Lake and looking back at a tin shed and thinking, oh golly, isn't this lovely and a source of great community pride? They'd want to look back on something that represents the confidence this city has in its future, that represents the best that it can do. So for what it's worth, I will be happily voting against this motion, and I will happily support Councillor Thorpe in his motion to go with what we can call option A, option 1, whatever. All I know is it's the best choice by far. Councillor Hemmens, one more go.
Thank you. I also bristled at the temporary designation. I don't think that was in the report. I don't think we've ever discussed this as being temporary. This is option 1 and option 2, and I think option 1 is possibly a bit more pragmatic given the economic culture or climate we're in. I wanted, Councillor Gesselbrock addressed it, but I want to note when we say that we won't be taxing for this, it's because we've already taxed. That money is in our reserves. We've already taxed for it, so it's not that it's tax-free. And to Councillor Eastmere's point, we have major projects coming up, a new RCMP building, we have Public Works, South End Community Center. These are things that we have said are priorities that are going to cost far more than this project. And we need to, when we talk about yeah, I'll leave that there. Can I have, actually I won't ask that question. Actually, Councillor Thorpe, could you please reread the SFN piece from the minutes for me? I'm not sure I quite caught it.
Yes, I certainly can.
Thank you.
It was a February 3rd meeting, and my minutes that I carefully save in a hard print copy and carefully file away in filing cabinets at home. Says council and staff discussion took place, highlights included, and one of the points is option A had previously received support from Snuneymuxw First Nation.
Are those in camera minutes?
I believe they could be. Well, I shouldn't have let Councillor Hemmens ask that question.
I think that's important. I'm not clear, having not attended that meeting, whether SFN was given both option and asked to select one, or whether option 2 was offered and they said, yes, please. So the minutes don't clarify the SFN piece for me. So that's all, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Hopefully the last speaker.
Thanks, Your Worship. I think Councillor Perino was talking about a tax or a budgetary increase, and I think when Councillor Gesselbrock said temporary, he wasn't suggesting this was a $6 million temporary project. There's a lot flying around, and I think it's just easy to get confused. And so, I think Councillor Hemmens hit it very well. It's a choice between two options. And I think Councillor Perino wasn't also indicating that this is money that's appeared out of nowhere. She was making sure that this wasn't driving a budgetary increase. Yeah, I just wanted to leave it at that, just to provide some clarity. Thanks.
Thank you very. All those in favor? Councillors Eastmere, Gesselbrock, Hemmens, and Manley, and those opposed, Councillors Armstrong, Mayor Krogh, Councillor Thorpe, Councillor Perino, Councillor Brown. The motion is defeated. Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you, Your Worship. I will then move that council direct staff to increase the budget by $6,169,373, funded by $4 million from the Special Initiatives Reserve and $2,169,373 from the Strategic Infrastructure Reserve Fund to proceed with the design option A, the original option A for the Loudon Park improvements.
Seconded, Councillor Armstrong, Councillor Eastmere, Councillor Gesselbrock, and Councillor Perino. I hope there's not too much more to say. Councillor Gesselbrock.
Thank you. I don't think that this is the only option to build a building that will, meet the needs into the future. We do have the ability to expand the park and put a building in an appropriate spot. I am dead sure that we will go to that park when the trees are removed in that central area and there's a building there and feel shame. There's very small areas that there's open space, and the area is perfectly all right. And we are deciding to put an $11 million building into an area that is highly used. One, to me, at a gut level, it feels extremely wasteful, especially when we're talking about, like, a large part of this is for boat storage. And I don't want to be disparaging to the canoe and kayak club and the rowing club. I really value getting folks out and exercising and competition, and I think it's a beautiful thing that I'd like to see grow and for us to invest in. But that park is a special place to a lot of people, and it would be a crying shame to replace the large part of the park with a building. And if our green space and our park space isn't protected in our parks, I don't know where it would be. And I think we're forcing ourselves, because of feeling a rush to get something in there, on a very unideal solution that I think that we will regret on multiple fronts. And so I really strongly urge council to consider, if the more modest solution is not suitable with the one that we just voted down, to put the brakes on a little bit and look at what else other options we have, because there is other ways to go about doing this and not ruin a special place, one where those trees are just as important infrastructure as a building, and they will probably last, in many cases, longer than that building will. And when it's all said and done, I think that when Nanaimo's developed, these green spaces are where we want our children to go and play. And I asked a good friend of mine, like, there's a question to have this extra community amenity space, and there's boat storage and we can regattas, and he said, yeah, I think it's really well needed, but it's a really postage-sized park. And he also said it would be great, place to have birthdays in the winter. And yeah, an indoor space that people can use, just like Oliver Woods, is great, but putting it right on a lakefront where there are trees that could potentially be there for a century is inane. And I think we need to seriously consider this and look at putting the brakes on and maybe looking at other options before we make a mistake. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Perino, then Councillor Eastmere.
Thank you, Your Worship. And just to say once again, thank you to Councillor Brown for, he was reading my mind. We don't have to ask for additional taxes. We've got the money, we are ready to go. At least it's not additional taxation that would be required to get the projects done. I think Councillor Gesselbrock, when he, it's not temporary. Both of these options are permanent. We know that. I very much feel that Councillor Gesselbrock is absolutely correct. If there was a way that we could take it back, if we had more space in the back so we could put the building further back, of course that would be a better option. The biggest concern that's held me all along through this is that we have one chance to get this done. And the fact, for me, the deciding factor was definitely when I hear that the first option is the larger option. That's important for the future of this park, because I do believe that we are continue to have a number of rowers, and we need, and kayakers, we need this space for the future development of the sport. So I'll go with I'll vote in favor of this, but I got to tell you, this one is a very, very difficult decision, and I really appreciate Councillor's debate on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Eastmere?
Thank you. I'm just wondering about options to rescope what we see as the current design of the boathouse, because I do think it's overbuilt for what it is. When you see what the boat storage looks like, and it's like fully glassed in, I have a hard time imagining that we need to build like an atrium for boat storage. And then when you look at the floor space of the community space, it's quite small, actually. So we are really just talking about very expensive boat storage. Yes, we've got the small training facility piece in there, but then the other part is mainly just the washrooms. So I would be very interested, if we're going to support this option today, do we have time to look at this plan again and think, what can we more realistically do, knowing that we have many other projects coming up that these reserves could be put towards? Because if we don't have the reserves for these future projects, then we're going to be forced to tax for them, and they are going to be very expensive. And we will have exhausted our reserves with this one project. So I am interested in the potential of a facility that meets future needs of the city and addresses the need for community space, but this boathouse, I really don't see getting us very far down that path, and I think we're spending a huge amount of money for what is essentially still just boat storage, and I'm not seeing it. So can we rescope if we support option one? Is there a way to scale this back and not have the curved roof design and all of these things that'd be lovely to see, but realistically,
Is that a question for staff?
It is a question for staff, yeah.
Through your worship, to Councillor Eastmere, certainly you can always relook at it and look at new designs. I mean, we have architect that worked on both these designs that could potentially do that if that's what we want to do. I do have to apologize. When Councillor Perino asked me about boat storage, I looked, it was additional club storage as large as boat storage is the exact same in both option A and option B. It's 490 meters squared. The rest of the facility overall is 400 meters less in option B as it is in option A, but the boat storage itself is 490 meters, and I apologize for that. I was looking at the opposite, the second line down. But as far as the question from Councillor Eastmere on rescoping, that's what architects do, and I mean, we can certainly look at if that's council's wish.
Okay, I appreciate that information, and I honestly, the part about the boat storage not like being the same size in both, that's critical information that we should have been considering on the first vote. And I don't know how we address that.
We have a motion on the floor, Councillor Eastmere. Speak to the motion. If you're not happy
So I guess
with
I'd
the
be
motion,
moving to
we can
defer.
vote to defeat it.
I would move to defer option one at this time.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Gesselbrock? Care to speak to it?
We weren't considering the fact that the boat storage size is the exact same in option 1 and 2. I don't think that got fully brought into the conversation, and if we are going to be proceeding with a building that includes community space, I think that we need to be rescoping the project and looking at ways to simplify the design, because like, for example, like I pointed out, the fully glassed in boat storage, it's not making sense to me as meeting a compromise between form and function.
Councillor Brown, do you wish to speak to the deferral?
I do, Your Worship. Wish to speak to the deferral. I won't be supporting the deferral. for these reasons. First and foremost, obviously this project has gone to a significant point where a BP or building permit plans were completed. So that's fairly far along, and then it was rescoped, and those options were presented to council. So there has been a rescoping exercise. That's not to say there can't be another one, and I've heard talks about expanding the park. If that was the will of council, then why select any design at all? Because if you were going to rescope with an expanded park, you would have the land, and then you would do the design for the land. You wouldn't be selecting an option, building it, and then expanding and say, oh, we're going to add this. Well, yes, you could do that, but that's a different type of project. That's not oh, we'll figure it out and we'll scope it out as one cohesive unit. It might sound good, it might be easy to say here tonight, but that's not actually how things happen in reality. And my final point of why I won't be supporting this deferral is there's been a lot of talk about the reserve funds and utilizing those reserve funds for other projects that we know have to be built. However, I think it's been presented to like 3 times the Public Works Yard. At no point did anyone raise their hand and say, oh, I want to use some of these reserve funds for these projects to help reduce the load. Really, it was we're going to borrow all of them. And there was options presented about how we might utilize some of those reserve funds. You know, so I don't want to digress too far there, but I think it's not in good faith to throw out a bunch of variables and say, what about this, what about that? The reality is we have 2 options presented. If council doesn't want to go with any of those and wants to talk about expansion of property and rescoping the project, I think that's a great conversation, except just it's not a deferral, it's a defeat. And then it's direction to staff to go and do that. So I won't be supporting the deferral. I will be voting in favor if this proceeds. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Armstrong on the deferral.
Yes, I'm going to be voting against the deferral. I just want to remind council, this has been on the book since 2006. 2006 is when this project for improvements first started, and I'm reading it right off of there. It was an updated improvement plan, was put through public process through 2009 and 2010. It was adopted then. I remember this has been on council since I've been here. It was brought forward 2018, 2019, 2021, 2022. How long do we keep putting it off? And the longer we put it off, the bills keep going up higher and higher and higher. And we've had all sorts of time and discussions at in-camera meetings on this, at other meetings to bring forward these conversations. It wasn't done, so I think it's time to vote on the next one. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gesselbrock.
Thanks. I would happily support a defeat if deferral is not necessary. So that's we can get to that point. I'll still support a deferral because it can buy a bit more time to get to defeat. But I think that this project was abandoned actually after COVID because it came in twice the amount that we'd budgeted for it. It was $4 million, and then it was like $8 million, and then $9 million, and it kept growing. And staff came back with alternatives because it got just too expensive. And then it got brought back. So the delays were legitimate, and this is the reason. And I actually hadn't really seen the full footprint of the first option up until a little while ago, and actually saw what it entailed and where the building was being put and what it meant for the park. So yeah, I support the deferral, but definitely more support a defeat.
Thank you. Councillor Mantley.
Thank you. Yes, I supported deferral. I actually supported defeat as well. I would be happy with a larger scope building, but just not in the location that it's been placed. And I actually have a question for staff about whether this building could be moved to where the option 2 siting was proposed, because I think that's a better location.
Councillor Manley, speak to the deferral, please.
Okay, well, I vote to defer, and I'll ask my question afterwards. Thank you.
All those in favor of deferral, Councillors Eastmere, Gesselbrock, and Manley. Those opposed, Councillor Armstrong, Councillor Hemmens, Mayor Krogh, Councillor Thorpe, Councillor Perino, Councillor Brown. The motion to defer is defeated. On the main motion, all those in favor, Councillor Armstrong, Mayor Krogh, Councillor... Councillor Manley?
Yes, I had a question for staff about whether this option could be moved, the building design, the building permit, whether it could be located in where the siting for option 2 was.
Through your worship to Councillor
So it's
Manley.
not-
My apologies. I believe it was the footprint of option A was put there because it made the most sense as far as the central area of the park to allow the maximum room in the back for parking and where the playground went as well. So it was chosen as the best possible site for the size of that facility.
Thank you.
Thank you. On the main motion, all those in favor, Councillors Armstrong, Mayor Crowe, Councillor Thorpe, Councillor Perino, Councillor Brown, those opposed, Councillors Eastmere, Councillor Gesselbrock, Councillor Hemmons, and Councillor Manley, the motion carries. Thank you very much for that vigorous debate. I must say, Council, my personal view was, as Councillor Armstrong's pointed out, it was time to fish or cut bait in this project. Costs are only going to increase over time, and indeed, if we slip into recession, maybe this will provide some employment for people. We're on to delegations unrelated to agenda items. Mr. Maffin? Good evening, welcome. Yep, up to the front. If you can just introduce yourself for the record, you'll have 5 minutes, and I'll let you know when there's a minute left. Welcome.
Okay. Hello, Todd Maffin. I live in Harewood, or 5 acres. We're not really sure yet. Somewhere in that range. I wrote this down so that I don't exceed my time limit because I have a tendency of rambling. I am here to ask for the council's help to help clear a bureaucratic and policy tangle. Some of you know the backstory on this, so I'll keep it brief. About 2 months ago, I was bored waiting for an Xbox game to install, and I made a little video saying if Americans really support Canadians, why don't you come up to Nanaimo and spend your money here? And I was overwhelmed with people. Thousands of people registered their interest and said that they were interested. It was overwhelming. There are now hundreds of people booked that are coming here on April 25th. I am not an event planner. I'm not a conference planner. I don't know how to do any of this, and I have a day job. I'm just a regular guy from Harewood who had a video go viral, and I'm hoping to get the city on board to make the most of it. What I'm hoping for specifically is that we get all these tourists together to get a family photo taken at Maffeo Sutton Park in front of the giant Nanaimo sign that we have there. Obviously, I don't think I have to tell you folks the incredible PR value of having hundreds of smiling American tourists by the Nanaimo sign. I think it would be phenomenal. That is where I've run into trouble and why I'm here tonight. And I just want to preface this, by the way, to say that all of the staff that I've dealt with have been like above and beyond super helpful, no issues. My grievance here is with paperwork and bureaucracy. It's not with staff. But I have been told that in order to secure the use of the park or the pavilion, I need to sign legal paperwork, pay a rental fee, get insurance, and put down a deposit, all of which would have Jocelyn and I personally assuming liability. I love this city, but I'm not prepared to put our house on the line for it if someone trips and hurts themselves. And if that ends up being the final answer, that's fine. We can not do the family photo. People will still come. That's cool. Not to be punitive, but just to be prudent. You know, this is not a for-profit private convention. It doesn't benefit Jocelyn and I at all. We don't make any money from it. We have no kickbacks from hotels. In fact, we're losing money on this. And this logjam over the park and whether or not we can use it to have the pavilion so that His Worship can say a few words and the MLA wants to say a few words, this has been going on for a month and a half. Again, I know staff are probably just as frustrated. And that is already causing us to lose some opportunities. Dozens of visitors, the MLA's office, the CBC just 3 hours ago calling me to ask whether the Saturday morning park gathering is happening or if they should put something else in their schedule and not come at all. So we're kind of down to the wire. There are tourists coming from New Jersey, Minnesota, Utah, New Mexico, South Dakota, Florida. My favorite are a couple driving up from Texas who are going to stop in Los Angeles and pick some other people up and bring them to Nanaimo. There's a group from the Netherlands. There are 2 separate groups from Australia, and that's about 10%. These are not people that are visiting relatives in Vancouver and are going to stop off here. These are people that are coming specifically with the purpose of spending money in our economy. And Nanaimo residents on their own, with like no real help from me, in a Discord server, have started pairing off with visitors. Dozens and dozens of them, picking them up, agreeing to pick them up at the ferry, take them out for lunch, show them the best hiking trails and so on. A volunteer team.
1 minute, Mr. Mappin.
Pardon me?
1 minute.
Understood. It is a volunteer team of Nanaimo residents, hundreds strong. I have done all I can. My ask tonight is for the city to join the team and to welcome these folks to the park as a city event, either by using the city's insurance or finding another path, and soon, so that we don't miss out on this, what I think is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have a couple council members asking questions. Councillor Gesselbrock? No? Councillor Prino?
Thank you, Your Worship, and if I could just say, I love your LinkedIn posts. I watch them all the time. You'll see me liking them. You know, you've done a great job on this one. I just wondered whether or not you've talked to the tourism.
The tourism people and the city were the first people I called when it was clear that this was all starting to become a thing. So yeah.
And did they say anything about the insurance and so forth that they?
The last I heard was that my contact at the city a week ago was going to connect with the tourism people, yes, and they would get back to me. And I have emailed the city 3 times since then, and I have not heard back. And that's what I'm concerned about, is that people are trying to make plans, both media to get, yes, this photograph, tourists to, you know, to come, and everyone. Everyone is asking me what happens Saturday morning, and I'm saying, I don't know. I don't think the city is given us permission to be there.
We'll try and get some answers. I'm so glad you're here tonight. Thank you so much for doing this, and really inspired by you. And I'll have a question for staff when we're done here. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Brown?
Thanks, Your Worship. I too know this problem because in 2018, Councillor Hemmons and I organized board games in Diana Krall Plaza, which Councillor Armstrong attended, and insurance was an issue as well. Obviously, it was only like 20 people, but so we just didn't take any and didn't go through the events process because it was a public space. So I do have a question through to staff after, if we could just not schedule anything for the park, if that just takes care of itself and people can assemble it.
That would be fine as well. Yeah, whatever works. I just want to make it happen, and without putting our house on the line.
Yes. So I'll wait through, but neat, and we'll follow up here. Thanks.
Mr. Mappin, I just want to say we're all very appreciative of what you've done and achieved so far. It has put the city in the map and attracted a lot of attention at a time when I think it's really important that we encourage relationships between the people of the United States and indeed the rest of the world and Canada. I too will have a couple of questions for Ms. Osborne and other staff, and I'd suggest you probably wait and hear what those questions are from council, please. Any further questions for Mr. Mappin? No? Thank you very much.
Thanks for your consideration.
Councillor Prino, do you want to go first, or shall I?
Thank you, Your Worship, and just to Ms. Osborne, so what can we do to make this happen without having, you know, someone to have to actually mortgage their house to make it work?
To do anything.
Through His Worship to Councillor Prino. We have provided a tremendous amount of support to Mr. Maffin, as we would any request that comes forward for an event in our park. We host over 300 events in Maffeo Sutton Park every year.
Yes.
And we are required to follow the bylaw 7336, which is our fees and charges bylaw. I can tell you on that day in particular, there is one other booking in the park, in the pavilion, at the same time that Mr. Maffin is looking to utilize the space. Staff have reached out to that booking and looked to see if there was any concern. The booking is prepared to work along with Mr. Maffin. And actually has invited people to participate in their festivities as well. So what we can do is Mr. Maffin does not have to book the park. He does not have to take out insurance. Currently, what the cost is for the park is $30.42 with a $200 deposit, refundable, of course, if there's no damages. And the insurance policy would be co-insured with the City of Nanaimo and would protect any participant at Mr. Maffin's festivities, and the city would support that. So.
What does co-insured mean? Does that mean I'm co-signing?
Mr. Mappin, let Ms. Osborne articulate it a little more.
So co-insured means the city, co-insured means that the city has special event insurance, and it supports and works with the insurance policy that Mr. Maffin would have.
So there's
So all of our facility rentals within all of our parks, facilities, and open spaces, when user groups or events come forward and book the facilities, they are required to take out that insurance and then co-insure with the City of Nanaimo.
So just to reiterate that, for Mr. Maffin, there is no risk, no requirement of extra funding other than that the small $30. Is that correct?
Yeah, to rent the space for 1 hour in Maffeo Sutton Park.
Yes.
On the day of request, it's $30.42, a $200 deposit, and then the required insurance. Mr. Maffin can take out a variety of insurances. That isn't our decision.
He doesn't need to, though.
He can choose not to, but then he would not be insured.
Okay, but we have insurance at the park. I guess you talked about co-insurance. Now it sounds like you're.
That's correct. If he takes out insurance, it becomes co-insured. He chooses a co-insured insurance with the City of Nanaimo.
Okay, so there's no other way around this.
He can choose not to have insurance, at which point.
Mr. Mappin,
Thank you.
please.
So-
Let me ask the simpler question, if I may. If the Krogh clan and everybody else and every friend I had wanted to gather in the park on that particular day, if we're not asking for exclusive use of any area, we are welcome to gather, correct? It's a public place.
Absolutely.
I don't have to take out a permit. I don't have to take out insurance. Anyone can gather in the park.
Just.
Absolutely.
Councillor Brown?
You asked my question. So if someone wanted to hold an event, but not actually hold an event, they can assemble in the park without doing the booking, and they aren't required to do the insurance. That's correct.
Through his worship to Councillor Brown, that is exactly the information we provided Mr. Maffin.
Okay.
It's only if you're asking for exclusive use to the exclusion of others, which is something that's hard to police. For instance, I'll use the example during the Dragon Boat Festival. The Dragon Boat Festival, the beer garden, those kinds of exclusive uses of portions of the park. Otherwise, Mr. Mappin is welcome, and I will be there as well, as I'm sure will most of council, and hopefully a good chunk of Nanaimo will be there without question, I suspect, on that day. But there is no legal requirement, nor arguably is any liability incurred, I suppose, from a practical point of view. If people gather in a crowd, they gather in a crowd. Fair comment?
Your worship, that is a fair comment. The park is available for exclusive use by booking it through our booking process. And as you said, if you wish to show and use the facilities and not book it, you don't have the exclusive usage. The park is available.
Any other questions for staff? Thank you very much. Much appreciated tonight. We are on next to reports. Heritage Alteration Permit, 35 Front Street. Mr. Scholberg, good evening. Mr. Holm is going to, I don't know whether Mr. Holm wants to introduce you or not.
Well, thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, maybe just briefly, just to say that I'm privileged to turn this over quite quickly to Mr. Chris Scholberg. This is a heritage alteration permit for a key heritage property in the city, which is the Nanaimo Courthouse, fitting as this is Mr. Scholberg's last appearance before council as staff for the city. He's been on staff for 33 years, and fitting that he's presenting this alteration permit to one of the key heritage buildings in the city. And Unless Your Worship wanted to say anything, I'm happy to turn it over to Mr. Schulberg. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Eastmere.
I was looking to move the recommendation, but also to really thank Mr. Schulberg for his years of work with the city. He's had such a huge hand in shaping the preservation of our downtown and working with neighborhood groups, and he's going to be really missed. And so thank you for all your work. You've made a huge impact on what Nanaimo will continue to look like and the character that we'll retain. So thank you for your work.
I have a question for Mr. Schulberg. Can you describe what is the Richardsonian Romanesque style?
Well, this is a
that
good
differentiates it from a Rattenberry or a...
Well, I actually looked this up today myself.
I knew you would.
I was looking at this going, they're going to ask what a Richardsonian Victorian era building is. It's well, there was a fellow named, an American architect named Henry Richardson, who I guess popularized this particular style of architecture. Really, the architectural style, though, goes quite far back. It goes back to Roman and Byzantine era sort of design philosophies, basically very proud tower forms, monumental kind of architectural forms. And in this case, Rattenberry certainly channeled that and developed, I think, something that's, probably not too dissimilar to the legislature in Victoria. That was another of Rattenberry's designs. And this was maybe a more modest example, but basically working with sandstone cladding and local stones, that sort of thing. So it's our Rattenberry. Basically, we have a Rattenberry. We actually have two Rattenberries. Believe it or not, the vault is also a Rattenberry. The building where the vault is currently located, the old Bank of Montreal building that's at the corner there of bottom of Wallace Street. So I don't, does that, basically more than that, I do not know about the architectural nuances of Henry Richardson, but basically that's what a Richardsonian means.
Mr. Schulberg, you have never disappointed. Would someone care to make the recommended motion? Councillor Eastmere, seconded Councillor Hemmens. All those in favor? And now I get the last word, so to speak. Mr. Schulberg, I have known you for a number of years, and I don't, at my age, care to think how many years that may be. I want to tell everyone that Chris Schulberg started at the City of Nanaimo, I am told, on April the 21st, 1992, as a land use regulations planner. Since then, along with Christine Mintzner and a number of volunteers and others in this community, and the keen interest of his former senior employee of the City of Nanaimo, Richard Harding, they have formed a repository of history and love and care for this city, its architecture, its history, its neighborhoods. I think Mr. Schulberg, it's fair to say, is the face of the neighborhood associations. He's the go-to person. He has, I won't say he, and you're here, you have performed your duties and earned the respect and affection, and I suspect on the odd occasion perhaps even love of the people who have worked with you over these years. I can only say on behalf of the City of Nanaimo, we are incredibly grateful for all you have done. We can only hope that in retirement you will be as available to the many people who will seek your knowledge and wisdom, including the Nanaimo Historical Society and other groups like that, who will rely on you for that incredible wealth of knowledge and care. You have been an outstanding public servant for this city. You will be missed, and I can say quite sincerely, when I teased you last year and you hinted you weren't going to be retiring, I took a great sigh of relief. However, I will suck that sigh back up tonight and accept the reality that you have chosen to do something for yourself instead of giving your all to the city and its history. So, Mr. Schulberg, if I may, I'm going to lead a little round of applause for you and express again the thanks of council for all you've done. And you get the last word if you want.
Oh. Oh. Ooh, well, I do want to thank you all for, it's been, I don't know, it's been a long period of time and this is a wonderful organization to work for. Happy, this was a great career thing. The interesting thing about Nanaimo is it's not, it's a big enough city to be interesting with regard to planning work you do here, but not so big that you feel like a cog in a wheel. So it's kind of, you feel like you can also have inputs that will help the city and its growth and its evolution as a city. So, and I've experienced all those sort of things through the work that I've done with the city, and it's never been boring, always interesting work. So, you know, as a planner, a city planner, you can't really ask for much more from a career or of the place that you work at. And of course, I think it's, you know, I think it's a noble thing to work for the citizens of a city, in this case, the citizens of Nanaimo, and through the elected representatives that you guys are. So what more can I say? It's been a great experience. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Pachkasiam. Moving on to the miscellaneous bylaws, repeal bylaw seems like a bit of a letdown now. Ms. Gurry.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I'm sorry to have to follow that. So before you this evening is a miscellaneous bylaws repeal bylaw. This is to bring forward housekeeping bylaw to repeal bylaws that are outdated and no longer valid. The report outlines that during a recent project, we came across a number of bylaws that were obsolete or no longer valid, and or they had been repealed by motion, and a bylaw can only be repealed by a bylaw. So on occasion, we bring forward a bylaw such as this that cleans up some old bylaws and repeals those that are unnecessary and or outdated. So that's before you this evening.
Thank you very much. If there's no questions from Ms. Gurry, Councillor Thorpe, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I shall try my best. I will move that miscellaneous bylaws repeal bylaw 2025 number 7352, a bylaw to repeal outdated bylaws, pass first reading.
Seconded, Councillor Perino. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries.
Then I will move that miscellaneous bylaws repeal bylaw 2025 number 7352 pass second reading.
Seconded, Councillor Hemmens. Any discussion? Not seeing any. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries.
And I will then move that miscellaneous bylaws repeal bylaw 2025 number 7352 pass third reading.
Seconded, Councillor Hemmens. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you. We're now on to C, Recycle BC Financial Projections 2025 through 2029. Mr. Sims.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, Council. I'll pass this over to David Thompson, recently restored to full height at his seat here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sims. I'm sure Mr. Thompson's grateful for that introduction.
Thank you.
Mr. Thompson, good evening.
Wasn't expecting to break a chair tonight. Your Worship, Council, good evening. I'm here to present the costs and revenues associated with the curbside recycling program that Recycle BC contracts the City of Nanaimo to deliver. This is a follow-up to the December 2nd, 2024 meeting, asking staff to present these financial forecasts for the new term of the agreement. Now that the 5-year financial plan has progressed, we're in a position to present these to you. On the revenue side, the new contract with Recycle BC includes mechanisms to adjust the annual revenues, either by using calculations based on the Consumer Price Index or by undertaking a cost study. In our forecast, revenues are projected to grow based on two factors: increases in the CPI and increases in the number of households served. These revenues are estimated to grow from approximately $1.4 million in 2025 to $1.57 million in 2029. On the expenses side, we have extracted costs that are associated with the delivery of the curbside recycling program, and those specific allocations vary from 100% for those costs that would otherwise not be incurred, such as our curbside auditing program, to lower amounts for those costs that are shared between landfill waste and household organics. For example, the community programs that are shared equally are allocated 1/3 to recycling. So for instance, that would be the development of our collection calendar. And activities that are weight-based are allocated 18% to recycling, which is the percentage of weight that the program handles. So that would be things like equipment wear and tear. Those annual expenses are forecast to decrease over the term of the agreement from $1.66 million in 2025 to $1.49 million in 2029. The bottom line is that the revenues from Recycle BC do not cover all the costs allocated to the program until 2029. The primary reason for this is the debt incurred as part of launching automated collection in 2018. So those costs are not related to recycling at all. As this is paid off, the revenues will exceed the allocated expenses. This cost allocation review serves two purposes. Firstly, to inform council and start a conversation about the city's continued participation in the program post-2029, so the next term. And secondly, to guide staff in conversations with Recycle BC during the course of this term.
Thank you very much. Just the report, no questions. Much appreciated. The next is liquor license application LA 158-Unit 201-70 Commercial Street. Mr. Holm, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, just very briefly, this is a liquor primary license application for an existing nail salon. Notification has taken place consistent with Council's liquor license review policy. 3 comments were received related to the proposed application, which would see liquor service provided potentially between the hours of 9 a.m. and 8 p.m. For up to 20 patrons in relation to an existing nail salon. This is in the downtown, obviously, in Unit 201 of 70 Commercial Street. Happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Perino.
Thank you, Your Worship. And a question through you to Mr. Holm. I'm just, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Holm. My understanding was that we were going to try to minimize these number of requests. And I just can't remember exactly what the method was or what the outcome was, or if we're even at that stage.
Thank you. Yeah, great question through Your Worship to Councillor Perino. So this is the one and only time that Council will see this application, whereas previously you would have seen it multiple times.
Okay.
So the notification's already taken place, and this is the consideration of a resolution, providing a resolution to the Liquor and Cannabis Regulation Branch with respect to the application. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Your Worship. And with that, I'll put the recommendation on the floor.
Thank you very much. Seconded Councillor Hemmens. Any discussion? Not seeing any. All those in favor and any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you. The next is development permit application DP 1365-1810 Fremont Road. Mr. Holm, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is a small infill industrial project within the Northfield Industrial Park, and this is by RW Bob Wall Limited. You can see in red the property on the screen, and it's in addition to an existing industrial building, 201 square meter addition. It didn't go through a design panel review, as it's determined to be largely consistent with the previously issued development permit for the property. Rear yard setback variance is requested, as well as a variance to the loading space size. Staff support the proposal, including the variances, which is consistent with the applicable design guidelines. I'm happy to take questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Perino.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wondered why this came back. This is the second time for the permit, is that correct?
No, through Your Worship, this is the first time Council is considering it. It was previously approved a development permit for the property that resulted in the existing development. So this is an addition to that building.
Okay, gotcha. Again, I'll put the recommendation on the floor. Thank you.
Seconded Councillor Thorpe. Councillor Hemmens.
It's not coming up. I'm going to support. I note this is a big variance, but it, given the maps and the rationale provided by staff, it makes it makes sense in the context of the surrounding properties, so happy to support, thank you.
Thank you very much. Any further discussion? Not seeing any. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you. The next is F, Covenant Amendment Application Number CA 19-6340 McRobb Avenue. Mr. Holm, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Property again outlined in red on the screen. And maybe if you could just bring up attachment A and then attachment C just to demonstrate what's proposed here. This is an amendment to covenant that's on an existing zoned R9 zoned property. You can see the area outlined in red, the area of proposed development. The area identified as area of building 1 is actually phase 1 of this development, which is currently under construction. You can see buildings 2 and 3 here are what's proposed to be constructed in this latest phase. And what's requested is an amendment to the covenant to change the number of units permitted from 266 to 296, split between buildings 2 and 3. And that would be in the case, so the increase in units would be in the case that it's a purpose-built rental form. Rather than a condo form. So they're requesting additional units for purpose-built rental housing in buildings, proposed buildings 2 and 3. As well, what's proposed is to actually increase the setback from adjacent property that was secured through previous covenant registered on the property from 7.5 meters to 8.4 meters. The height of the proposed buildings would remain the same as was previously proposed through earlier covenants on the property. And given that the consideration was given to the development on the property through public hearing previously, staff recommend that the proposal proceed through public hearing, which is consistent with Council's covenant amendment policy. I'm happy to take questions, and I know as well Scott Mack, representing Townsite Planning Inc. is in attendance as well. I should mention, actually, this is in the Woodgrove Secondary Urban Center, so entirely consistent with what the land use designation would anticipate for the property. Thanks.
Thank you very much. If no questions, Councillor Hemmens.
Sorry, I apologize for the tech. I just want to understand, so we're saying that they can have more units because one of the buildings is going to be purpose-built rental, but in the report it says the applicant intends to develop building 2 as purpose-built rental, but would like to keep the flexibility for market ownership units in the event that unforeseen circumstances impact financing for purpose-built rental. So we're giving them the approval to go ahead for more units. At what point do they say this is going to be market or this is going to be rental, and where then do we kind of tease out how many units they get?
Yeah, a good question, and through your worship, and if council's inclined to invite the applicant to speak to it as well, and I believe the applicant's a delegation to the item as well, but generally, yeah, there's getting into closer to when they're doing more detailed design into building permit stage, and they're looking at financing the project. There may be financing streams that are available for purpose-built rental that would make that more a viable project for them. In that case, they could choose to go up to the 296 units versus the 266. So looking at doing, if it's purpose-built rental, they're going to put forward a proposal that has probably fewer 2 and 3 bedroom units, and looking at smaller units, likely for purpose-built rental. They'd make a decision when they're getting into detailed design through building permitting, and when they're looking at funding for the project.
Thank you. A follow-up, if I may, just so I'm really clear, at no point would they say this is rental and get the 296 units and then flip it and say, actually, we're going to put this out to market? Is there any circumstance where that could happen?
No, the covenant would speak to that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. If no further questions, Mr. Holm, Mr. Mack. Good evening. You've been before us before. 5 minutes. I'll give you the warning when a minute is left. just introduce yourself for the record, please, and thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Members of Council, my name is Scott Mack. I'm a registered professional planner and the managing partner for Town Site Planning. I'm here tonight to speak on behalf of my clients and just offer a few quick comments with regard to application CA19 for 6340 McRobb Avenue. You may recall that I was here approximately 18 months ago when Council considered and ultimately approved a much more substantial amendment to the covenants registered on this property, which altered the previous plans, which were for two 20-story towers, and reduced it down to two 6-story buildings with roughly the same number of units. As I said, that application was approved by Council. As the project architect worked to refine the building layouts for the 6-story proposal, the owner became aware of an opportunity through CMHC to pursue financing that would allow for one of these two buildings to be built as a purpose-built rental building. There are, as Mr. Holm alluded to, different markets for strata-titled and rental units. In order to make the development of a purpose-built rental building feasible, the owner had to reconfigure the internal layout of the building that is proposed, which as a result increased the potential number of units between the two buildings from 266 units to 296 units. I will note that at 296, we are still lower than what the original 20-story tower proposal would have supported, which was 308 units. We believe this opportunity represents a win-win for all parties. The owner is able to diversify his offering to the market with both ownership and rental. The city secures additional much-needed purpose-built rental housing, and the neighborhood, which is targeted in city plan for significant growth, benefits from a broader diversity of housing options. In spite of the additional units, the overall size of the building through the detailed design process was actually reduced slightly. As Mr. Holm indicated, we were also able to increase the northern property setback from 7.5 meters to 8.4 meters, which was a concern with the previous application. And we were still able to satisfy the city's parking bylaw requirements. Therefore, the impact of this change is essentially negligible from our perspective. To that end, while we appreciate staff support for the request, we did note that they have recommended that Council advances to a public hearing. We further note that your policy for covenant amendments identifies that public hearing is not a requirement and that it is at Council's discretion. And we would respectfully request that Council consider waiving the requirement for 3 reasons. One, compared to the previous application, which as noted was obviously much more substantial, this application is much more simple and straightforward. Number 2, if this was being addressed through zoning, which typically things like unit counts and densities are, the city would now in fact be prohibited from holding a public hearing as a result of recent changes through provincial legislation. And 3, given the scale of the project, the development permit for this project will be coming to Council for consideration and approval, giving Council an opportunity at that time to review and approve the overall development. In short, the owner would like to pursue a purpose-built rental as part of their project, but requires a little bit of additional flexibility in relation to unit count and building design in order to make it feasible. We do hope that Council can see the merits of increasing the availability of rental housing options in this neighborhood and will agree to move this forward. My understanding is that the development permit for the full 296 unit project is essentially ready to come to Council as soon as a decision has been made on this covenant amendment application, and the owner is eager to move forward with the next building as the 66 units in phase 1 are nearing completion. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to address them.
Thank you very much. Councillor Perino?
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for being here. And I'm just wondering if you could give me the size of, is the size of the apartments, or what will be the rental units, considerably smaller than what was originally planned?
Through Your Worship to Councillor Perino, the overall size of the buildings is similar. Like I said, it's been reduced slightly.
Yes.
As a result of the increase in the number of units, obviously that's going to have a resulting decrease in the size.
Okay.
Essentially, that's made up through smaller units, and secondly, a slight sort of rejigging in the range of unit types. But in both buildings, both the strata title building and the rental building, there are still proposed to be a mix of bachelor, 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and 3-bedroom units.
Okay. Are they, off the top of your head, size?
I'm sorry, I don't
I'm
have those
sorry, I'm-
numbers.
I'm doing
They are, you know, from my experience, they're very typical in terms of size and configuration to what you'd see in a lot of other either rental or strata type buildings. And to be honest with you, from a size standpoint, you would be able to go into one building and the other, and you wouldn't notice a difference
Okay.
over the course of the entire building.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for the delegation? Thank you very much. Appreciated. Someone care to make the recommended motion? Councillor Armstrong? Thank you. Seconded Councillor Hemmons. Any discussion?
I'll speak to it.
Councillor Armstrong?
Just wanted to say, I remember when this came before council, there was a lot of public here because they're concerned about it. And I think the change from ownership to rental will be concerning, so I believe we need a public hearing. Thank you.
Seconded? Who seconded? I did. Seconded Councillor Hemmons. Any further discussion? Councillor Brown?
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. I won't be supporting it. I just think it doesn't need to have a public hearing. Procedurally, I don't think it's going to add a lot of benefit, so I won't support it. Thanks.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Councillors Armstrong, Eastmere, Gesselbrock, Hemmons, Krogh, Thorpe, Brino, and Manley, and opposed. Councillor Brown, motion carries. Thank you very much. The next is 13, Bylaws, Housing Agreement, Bylaw 2025, number 7394. Councillor Thorpe.
Excuse me. Thank you, Your Worship. There we go. I will move that Housing Agreement Bylaw 2025, number 7394, to secure the terms and conditions of occupancy for a residential shelter at 11 Dancer Road be adopted.
Seconded Councillor Hemmons. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you. Next, we're on to correspondence. 14A is correspondence dated 2025, March 20, from Association of Vancouver Island Coastal Communities, AVICC, re-feedback requested for reforming the Local Government Act, a roadmap. Ms. Gurry, it's basically asking us if we would provide a reply, and
That's correct, Your Worship. So it's just on the agenda so that it's on the record, and I'm not sure if Councillor Gesselbrock has anything to add, as the correspondence came from him and AVICC. But yes, it's just on the agenda for the record.
Councillor Gesselbrock?
Thanks. No, it's an important engagement. It was sent out, primarily for the regional districts, but we all do sit on the regional districts. But, if council does have time to provide some feedback on it, I think it's important legislation that needs to be updated. And yeah, that's it. Thanks.
It occurs to me that obviously cities located within regional districts have an interest in this, and I'm wondering if we want to make some sort of motion respecting a reply or response. Councillor Armstrong?
We all got it and we all filled it out, so I don't know why we need to do that.
And it's perfectly permissible that every member respond.
Yeah, because it was required, it came to us individually.
Good. Councillor Gesselbrock?
The nature of some of the aspects of legislation, staff, have a much more intimate understanding of it, and the intent was to get it onto the agenda, especially at the regional districts, if councils or regional districts wanted to direct staff to spend some time looking at it. I don't know if it's necessary here, but if there's a desire, we could do that. But just the more input and the more informed input, the better. So thanks.
Thank you very much. The next is correspondence dated 2025, March 24, from Island Rail Corporation rebuilding Vancouver Islands Railway. This arose out of a meeting I had with Mr. Stewart, who's present with us tonight. And there is a request that the City of Nanaimo host a meeting of the island mayors in coming together to provide Island Rail Corp with an opportunity to present a path forward. Councillor Gesselbrock, you had something to say about this?
Thanks. I appreciate the correspondence. Just background, the province has given out about $18 million divided up between the regional districts and the First Nations to do engagement and and feasibility studies and studies on environmental remediation for the entire corridor. And that is roughly being coordinated by the Island Corridor Foundation to collate all that information and to bring the groups together to discuss different opportunities on the transportation corridor. And I think that if we were to go ahead with this request, it would be a parallel process that possibly quite confusing what's already happening, and other nations are already owners of the corridor through the Island Corridor Foundation. So I think it probably be best to receive the information and maybe consider it down the road.
Any further comment from anyone? If I'm not seeing a motion come forward, then it's received for correspondence. Thank you. Thank you very much. The next is the Italian Society Felice Cavallati Lodge request for a letter of support re-grant application to Legacy Fund Building Communities Through Arts and Heritage. And there is a recommended motion. Moved by Councillor Brown, seconded by Councillor Perino. Any discussion? Not Councillor, nope. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you. The next is D, Van Cortlandt, and there are three, by the way, in a row, as council's noticed, all respecting application of the Destination Events Program grant. So the first is the Van Cortlandt exhibition request for a letter of support re-grant application of the Destination Events Program grant. There is a recommended motion. Moved Councillor Armstrong, seconded Councillor Perino. Any discussion? Not seeing any. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. The next is the Nanaimo Equestrian Association request for a letter of support re-grant application to the Destination Events Program grant. And again, there's a recommended motion. Moved Councillor Thorpe, seconded Councillor Perino. Any discussion? Not seeing any. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. And then the Petroglyph Development Group request for a letter of support re the proposed cabin project on Sasatchin Island. There is a recommended motion. Moved Councillor Armstrong, seconded Councillor Thorpe. Discussion on this. Councillor Hemmens, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm curious about development in provincial parks and the requirement for consultation with the general public. I'm not sure that that's even a staff question, but it's something that surfaced for me. We're essentially supporting changes to a provincial park with this letter. And I'm not sure that I don't feel well enough informed to make that decision. So just curiosity.
Ms. Osborne, are you able to illuminate in these circumstances, please? Or Mr. Lindsay, or?
Maybe I could just be a bit more specific in my question. So I understand that Sasatchin is a provincial park. It's managed by Snuneymuxw First Nation. So what is the interface? Will Snuneymuxw need to do public consultation if we send this letter and it goes forward? Like at what point does the public get asked about changes to a provincial park?
Through His Worship to Councillor Hemmens. My understanding is we currently have a co-management or a management working committee that has representatives from the province, from SFN, and from the City of Nanaimo. And for the Petroglyph to put forward a grant application for REDRIP, the province required the city to show a letter of support in principle before the application for the grant could be considered. So I believe following that is when there would be consultation.
Do we know that for sure? This feels dicey to me if we don't know that for sure.
Your Worship, I don't think we can speak to, ultimately it would be the province's process. This is a provincial park, so they would have to ultimately approve any of the improvements in the park. I'm not familiar with what their process is to do that, but there is no city process that would require community consultation on this.
During the presentation, community consultation wasn't discussed with staff.
So if I'm hearing correctly, this is a letter of support will get them into the application process. We don't know what the application process brings. It could include community consultation, it could not. Is that accurate?
That is accurate, and it is a letter in principle of support.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm feeling some discomfort supporting this just because fully supports Nanaimo First Nation developing the park that they co-manage into a vision that they hold. However, I'm just acknowledging some discomfort because I'm not sure that how the province will consult with residents of the city of Nanaimo about changes to that park. I'd love some more discussion because I'm a little lost here. Thank you.
Councillor Armstrong, sorry, Councillor Brown.
Question through to staff. I just note, like, so we have the arrangement with Nanaimo and the province to meet, but the application is with Petroglyph. I'm just curious on that interface and how that's navigated, just in the sense of who's actually making the application, like what is the entity that is, like, who is Petroglyph the co-management partner, or?
So I think, Your Worship, the best way to describe this is the co-management agreement that we've had between the province and SFN and the city dates back many, many years before Petroglyph ever existed.
Right.
And I'll be honest, that group has not met regularly. I think twice in its history. Ms. Osborne's given me the 2 symbol. Twice ever has that group actually met. So it's not been an active and ongoing group. And I would say especially since SFN has taken over management of the park through their subsidiary Petroglyph. The application is from Petroglyph as they're the managing partner. But back to the process, I'm not familiar with what the provincial process is for any amendment to a provincial park, whether they propose to add facilities and whether or not they engage with the community. So I just can't speak to that, sorry.
So I guess just to follow up, are we just a co-manager by name but not in practice?
I think that the partnership of the co-management is more what the city does both on the land-based side, on the water side to support the overall park, okay. But we do not have a strong say in the actual operation of the property itself. And I would say that's probably even diminished since SFN has actually taken on operation of the park.
Okay,
We
cool.
certainly work together as partners, but we do not have a role in approving any of the development on that site.
Okay, thanks for that. It's just a little ignorant to kind of that relationship, so appreciate it.
Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to support this, and I seconded the recommendation, but I certainly understand the hesitation of Councillor Hemmons, and I guess I share her concerns about uncertainty about what the process looks like. And I also note, as I think Councillor Brown pointed out, that the request comes from the Petroglyph Development Group, not specifically from SFN Council. So I'm wondering if it's possible to consider deferring this until we can get more information regarding the process and what our responsibilities are and what the picture would look like in terms of public consultation with our residents, because I think that would be important for any changes to the island. So perhaps I could look to staff to ask if that would be a reasonable request for deferral, if council would entertain that.
Mr. Lindsay.
Your Worship, council can obviously make any decision you want on this. My response would be, I think this project is of interest. We've clearly heard from the nation its interest. It's part of their plans for the overall development of the site. It's important for them for it to proceed. I think because it's not part of the land that's regulated by the city, one suggestion may be to approve it with a recommendation to the province that they consider public engagement as part of the final consideration for the development of these cabins. In that way, both supporting the application so that they meet their timeline, but also communicating the city's interest that there may be public interest in the overall development.
So if I may, Your Worship, that is a path forward that I would support.
So the recommended motion to be revised is Councillor Armstrong? We're not having much luck tonight with these things, are we?
No, okay. Okay, it's on now. I just want to show you that PDG is actively engaging with BC Parks, so they're already having the conversations with BC Parks. This is just a letter saying that we support them. And then the BC Parks stuff will go. There's also, I believe, a reconciliation agreement starting to be in place with this, which will make this all mute. But all they're asking for is, do we support the idea of having cabins there? That's how I read it. And it reads right in there that they're actively engaging with BC Parks. And the first step is to get the city saying, yes, it's a great project, or no, it's not. And then the next process goes, and then BC Parks would start their consultation. That's how I read it. And it's also upholding the principles of the 2007 Collaborative Management Agreement. So I don't see any issue with supporting this today, because if the BC Parks wants to go to public consultation, they'll go to public consultation. That's just my take. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Hemmens, there you go, it should work.
Thank you. Yeah, Councillor Armstrong, I see this exactly the same as you. I don't know that I feel confident saying as a city we support this without having heard from residents on this. This is a beloved park in the downtown of Nanaimo. Yeah, I'm genuinely conflicted on this one. Thank you.
So, Your Worship, I'm not sure if Councillor Thorpe was making that recommendation to amend the motion to include that that council would recommend or request public consultation for the cabins or the proposed cabin project.
Connected. Thanks, Ms. Gurry. That was actually not the intent of my comment. I was questioning staff whether or not considering a deferral would be a reasonable request, and I'm not sure that it would be based on the answer I got. So what you're suggesting, I think, is something slightly different, and that's something that perhaps Councillor Hemmens might be interested in looking at, without putting words in.
No, my apologies. I just thought that's what I heard you saying. So, Your Worship, through you to Councillor Thorpe, no problem.
Councillor Hemmens?
I'd propose that amendment.
So the motion would now read that the mayor, on behalf of council, provide a letter of support to Petroglyph Development Group for their proposed cabin project on Sasechin Island, with the recommendation that BC Parks undertake public consultation. Is that?
Your Worship, I think there would almost be two separate recommendations. The first is supporting the application, and because of the nature of needing a resolution to support the application. The second being correspondence to BC Parks, Petroglyph, that we would encourage public engagement as part of their planning for the park and installation of the cabins.
Councillor Hemmens indicates she's making that motion.
Well, I'm
Yes.
hearing two separate motions.
Two separate motions.
I'm gonna support the first motion with a blind leap of faith that BC Parks will do public consultation. I don't know that we need a motion to say, please do public consultation. This is their process, but I do want to flag that, you know, if there is no public consultation, this won't go over well. Yeah, thank you.
All right, so we have an unamended, straightforward motion and the suggestion that might be followed by a second motion. If I'm not hearing any further from anyone, I will call question on the motion as it stands. All those in favor? All in favor, and does someone care to make a second motion with respect to a letter to BC Parks requesting they engage in public consultation of some form or something to that effect? If I'm not seeing it, then that's the end of it. Thank you, Council. I might say for the record, without a motion on the floor, that I agree, and we all know that The use of Seisachun and its importance to the community is significant, and if cabins start going up without any public consultation, there will no doubt be a public response. So for the record, I'm just saying that I encourage BC Parks to reach out and consult with the community at large. Any change in a provincial park, regardless of how meritorious it might be, how valuable it may be for tourism, and how important it may be to advance us on the road to reconciliation, is nevertheless something that the public will be extremely interested in. The next is the G, Wild Coast Ecological Society request for a letter of support re-grant application for the Environment and Climate Change Canada Eco Action. Councillor Hemmens.
Thank you. A question, if I may. This is the only application that ticks. There's a check mark in between in-kind contribution and partnership. I'm not sure which one it applies to, but I'd like some clarity on what beyond a letter of support in principle that they're asking for. I've read the application. It's not obvious to me. There isn't a financial ask of us. There could be a staff time ask, but it's just unclear to me. And they have ticked off one of these boxes. Is anyone else concerned about this or curious about this, or am I making a mountain out of a molehill?
Your Worship, I'm not sure we have an answer for that. I'm sorry I missed that on the form, but because it's within a city park, I assume they're anticipating that they'll have to at least work with our city staff to coordinate any work or any improvements within the park. So.
And if they do mean partnership, because it is directly in between them, we'll know that.
Through your worship, Councillor Hammonds, I did speak to our Deputy Director of Parks today about this application. She reassured me that she's been in touch with the organization and that they are following the East Wellington Parks Plan. She had no concerns in regards to the application, but I didn't catch as well that tick is a little bit in the middle there and hard to know exactly what was intended, but I haven't heard of there being a request for anything outside of the normal.
Thank you. I will move the recommended motion.
Seconder, Councillor Armstrong. Councillor Eastmere.
Is it because, like, in the application itself, under number 9, proposed budget, it mentions an in-kind contribution from ecological enterprises valued at $6,000? Could that be why?
Technical support.
But that would be an in-kind contribution, not from the city.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I think I feel confident if staff don't have any reservations. I'm confident moving forward, and if it comes up to a place where a partnership is requested, we'll know that, we'll know the scope of that, we'll be able to decide on that. Thank you.
All right, all those in favor? Any opposed? None, motion carries. I think we'll deal with the Loyal Bathtub Society, and then we should take a short break. The next is the Loyal Nanaimo Bathtub Society request for a letter of support re-grant application to the Destination Events Program grant. Anyone? Moved by Councillor Brown, seconded by Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries. All right, we'll take the evening break now.
Around every corner and under every corner, the city has assets, infrastructure that quietly adds convenience to our day-to-day living. From the pipes that carry our water and wastewater, to the roads that we walk, cycle, and drive on, to the amazing parks facilities that keep us active. We depend on this infrastructure without really thinking about its upkeep. That is, until something goes wrong. In April 2020, the water main that runs beneath Bowen Road broke and burst in a big way.
I don't think there's anything we depend upon in this community more than our water supply. We have dams, we have a reservoir, we have a water treatment plant, we have big water trunk mains and distribution mains, fire hydrants, and all kinds of other pieces of infrastructure totaling $1.5 billion that all bring water to our 100,000 residents. We have to be really careful to plan and make sure that that system is robust and resilient so that nobody's ever without water.
The water main on Bowen Road was quickly repaired, and recognizing that the entire water main was at risk, a plan was quickly moved forward to replace it with the Midtown water supply, a new seismically safe water main built for future growth and expected to last for nearly a century. A parallel and backup water main has also been installed and can be used whenever the main line needs repairs.
When we plan to replace our assets, our underground infrastructure, our facilities, all of those sorts of things, we want to make sure we're future-proof as possible. We're really looking out for the long-term best interest of the community. And so we want to make sure that the infrastructure is resilient, it's hardened, and it has sufficient capacity for growth, for unpredictable events such as earthquakes or wildfires. And we want to make sure that we're protecting the environment as much as possible.
Making smart, modern improvements and focusing on sustainability applies to all of the city's asset management planning, regardless of a project scale.
As our infrastructure ages and it becomes time to replace it, because that's really part of the asset management life cycle, we always strive to replace with newer technology, more effective, more efficient fixtures, or even enhancing and taking advantage of newer technology. So a few examples would be LED streetlights, replacing the old high-pressure sodium, very environmentally invasive, with LED, much more focused and much less cost of electricity. Another example would be the boilers in our pools. We're getting away from the intensive GHG gas boilers and shifting more and more to electric, and still using the old ones as backup. Another great example that we like to point to, it's been really relatively under the radar for the last 10 years, is at our #1 reservoir, we actually, as we fill the reservoir, generate electricity and sell that back to the grid to the tune of about $100,000 a year.
Even with the city's best planning, the unpredictable can happen, such as the water main break on Bowen Road. Planning for the unexpected is one more reason why the city maintains an asset management fund. With $4.8 billion in infrastructure, planning and budgeting for the future is crucial to keep Nanaimo healthy.
So a huge part of planning ahead involves determining how much money is needed to fund the replacement of assets, and the city uses long-term planning to do that.
The city has 3 asset management funds that help with long-term infrastructure planning. One for water, one for sewer, and a general asset management fund.
So the contributions to the 3 asset management reserve funds help to smooth out the impact on property taxes and user fee increases when replacement is needed.
You know, for the last 10 or 12 years, Nanaimo's council has been really supportive in annual contributions and increasing approximately 1% of taxes every year dedicated to asset management to ensure that our funding to replace our old assets remains sustainable.
As Nanaimo is one of the fastest growing cities in BC, the demand on our infrastructure is growing right along with it. This makes long-term planning more important now than ever.
Without that contribution to asset management reserves, we wouldn't be able to ensure that the services Nanaimo continues to rely on and appreciate and enjoy would be able to be sustained.
Starting up a short-term rental in the city of Nanaimo? From marketing to pricing to your business platform, there's a lot of pieces to the puzzle. One piece that you won't want to miss is your short-term rental business license. Puzzled? We're here to help. A short-term rental is the rental of a living space for a period of less than 30 days back-to-back. By following the guidelines of the Short-Term Rental Operator's Guidebook,
projects which will be heard at a future council meeting. Thank you very much, Councillor Hemmens. Item 16, other business. The first is request from Mayor Krogh to send correspondence to Ravi Parmar, MLA, Minister of Forestry, future of our local forest industry. As council can see, Mayor Douglas and his council have approved this letter, and he has requested my signature on it as well. And as per council policy, I would not and could not affix my signature to such a letter without the approval of council. So what I'm seeking would be a motion that authorizes me to sign that particular letter, the draft of which is attached. Moved Councillor Armstrong, seconded Councillor Thorpe. Discussion. Councillor Gesselbrock, Councillor Armstrong, then Councillor Eastmere. Yes, she should as the mover.
Yeah, I'm very supportive of this. I was doing research on it, and then they said, like, U.S. Department of Commerce is planning to raise duties by nearly 140%, which means we're really going to be in trouble. And there's a lot of businesses, you know, and a lot of our economy is dependent upon it. So it's just a working group, again, I believe. So I think it's very important to have those conversations. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gesselbrock, are you ready to speak to it now?
Yes, thank you. You know, I think the mills and the forestry industry needs a lot of support right now, and you know, it's a big impact in the community. If they're slowing down, I'm not sure exactly how the tariffs factor into their requests. I'm a little bit hesitant to support this request because they're very specific policy asks of the provincial government about increasing the annual allowable cut to 45 million cubic meters, and then for the duration of, you know, moving it back up to that and then continuing it for the next 5 years. That is counter to sort of what the province had forecasted. The reason why the annual allowable cut is being reduced is because there's just not enough valuable timber to cut, and hundreds of thousands of hectares have burned in the last decade, partly because of management. And so if on the annual allowable cut, if they moved it back up to 45 million cubic meters and then maintained it at that level, it would be near impossible for the province to follow through on its commitments around old growth, ecosystem-based management, which is a shift from the timber supply management. And so I just think that we're kind of wading into provincial policy on this and being asked to have commentary on things that are we don't have a lot of knowledge about. And I think there's a genuine desire to support our mills, and I think I really want to, and I want the provincial government to do that. And I don't know if the asks are really as relevant to the tariffs, for one, and two, will actually provide a sustainable industry in the long term, which ultimately that we want, because these are good jobs, and we want a sustainable industry. So the second request on the policy, I do support. I think there's always room to improve the permitting process and that, and I think there's a lot of work that could be done there, but the annual allowable cut aspects, I think it's just asking us to wade too much in, and I'm not comfortable also, you know, my understanding level to wade into that. So I don't think I can support signing this letter. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Eastmere.
Thank you. Yes, similar to Councillor Gesselbrock's comment, I think personally the piece about the increase in the annual allowable cut, I don't feel like that is within our jurisdiction to be advised. I don't think it's in our jurisdiction, and I don't think it's within our purview to be weighing in on that. And I just have to wonder why we're supporting a letter just from two mayors on this issue. Like, we have the Association of Vancouver Island and Coastal Communities Convention coming up this weekend. I feel like that would be a much more appropriate place to have a conversation about this and to add the weight of AVICC behind this kind of advocacy if this is the right direction for communities with sawmills. So I'm not seeing why this letter needs to go from two mayors, and for that reason, I'm not in support of this.
Councillor Gesselbrock.
Oh, no, hi.
Sorry, I meant Councillor Brown.
Thanks, Your Worship. You know, I know we extensively debated another letter recently, but I'm just interested in this letter where it says, in response, we're calling on your ministry to undertake the following actions, and it's that first one, commit to the AAC. My impression is or my understanding is the chief forester is the one that sets the AAC as an independent, based on technical expertise. Increasingly, I think there's First Nations co-governance that factors into that, previous cuts, demand, a whole host of factors. So I guess I'm uncomfortable supporting a specific number when there's a process where the chief forester, who is supposed to be independent and very knowledgeable of these things, sets the cut. So I don't have any information to support why that process isn't working, and so because of that, I won't be supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Armstrong.
Councillor Manley's ahead of me.
Councillor Manley.
Thank you. Yeah, I would concur with what Councillor Brown just said, and I know we've been through a process in this province of reconciliation with First Nations, and part of this permit and regulatory process is because we've gone through this process of reconciliation that we want more input from First Nations on the cut in their territories. We're dealing with this tariff threat, and I'm 100% supportive of our forest industry, but we need to be managing our forests in a different way, and we need to be using our forests to maximize employment in our communities. Right now, we export 6.5 million cubic meters per year of raw logs from this province, and most of it comes from the east coast of Vancouver Island. And we have a Harmac mill is asking for feedstock, and right beside them, they're watching raw logs get exported. At the same time, we import $2.2 billion worth of softwood lumber products, finished products from the United States. And so if we've learned anything in these last few months, honestly, with decades of the softwood lumber dispute with the United States, it's that we got to stop this model of ripping and shipping resources out of this country and use those resources to maximize employment and for secondary manufacturing to ensure that we get the maximum employment out of the resources that we have. And I would be calling upon those companies that are exporting raw logs to do their patriotic duty, to stand up for Canada and to ensure that we use our resources for Canadian jobs, to build Canadian homes, to make Canadian products for Canadian consumers and for our export market. And so I can't support this letter as it stands, and I think that that's what we need to be pushing for, is to build our forest industry, and I think that that's what Nanaimo Forest Products has been asking for in the process, talking to Paul Sadler about what he'd like to see going on beside his mill. He'd like to see, beside Harmac, other wood-based industries that can then help with the feedstock for that mill and produce value-added products to export and for Canadians. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Armstrong, sorry.
I just wanted to say 45, million, whatever, cubic meters, that's less than what the Master Chief Forester set. The Chief Forester set here is 53 million, so it's less. So I think we're just being asked for them, and it says to commit to their promise of what they've already done. And I'm just bringing up the mandate letter for Minister Parmar, and I'm just seeing if the numbers are in there. But I think it's really important that we send a message that we support our forestry industry here, they're in dire needs. Like, and not only that, we're gonna be, you know, if we lose that, the money that we lose from just their tax base, we're gonna be losing millions from Woodgrove's tax base because of the different closures. So I just think it's just a letter asking for them to honor their commitment, which they've already made, and then to streamline a permit, and they're gonna have to look at it. So for me, I think it's a no-brainer that, you know, it shows we're supporting hundreds of people in this town and millions of dollars. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you, Your Worship. I totally agree with Councillor Armstrong's comments, and I totally support sending this letter. It's not a federal campaign issue to me. This is a local issue for the Central Island, as Mayor Douglas has identified. And I don't think we can sit here and say that we support the forest industry and then not support doing something. Let's put our money where our mouth is and support at least this letter, because this industry needs all the support it can get, and our local economies depend on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hemmens.
Thank you, Your Worship. I feel like we've debated this letter before. And I'm actually going to change my vote, and I'm going to support you signing it tonight for the simple reason I think the province is going to put this to the side. The province is dealing with tariffs. It's the province's jurisdiction to deal with AAC. I actually think I resent a little bit being asked to weigh in on another government's jurisdiction, and I'm hearing things from Councillor Manley and Councillor Armstrong and Councillor Brown that I'm actually not familiar with, and I feel like I need background in forestry to say yes, 100%. You know, all of these specifics, a review of BC timber sales. I didn't even know BC timber sales was a thing until this letter came through. Like, this is not my bailiwick. So I'm gonna support you sending it because I think the government's already on it, but I do think the process of this is a little squishy for me. This is industry lobbying us to say specific things. If we didn't have the specifics, if we just said, listen, Minister, this is really important to our community. We request that you keep our mills in mind as you're negotiating the tariffs. I would 100%, I'd sign that myself, but this is very specific, and it's asking me to have knowledge that I simply don't have, and I don't have the time to understand it. So I support, but with caveats. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kesselbrock.
You know, just with the annual allowable cut, I mean, I think this is something that has been an advocacy point of industry for many years. It came again up to AVICC, and the whole the AVICC voted down for supporting the request on this because of the process that the province had put in place. We had a letter on this earlier, and now this letter, and I think the hope is that, you know, under this tariff environment, that this is a policy change that could be attained, because there is legitimate concern about economic slowdown and challenges. But it's asking for a particular solution, but not addressing things like, why isn't anybody lobbying to keep the raw logs in town and have them milled? And so I am concerned, though, by putting the council signature on the letter, it is, you know, putting additional pressure on the province to shift, you know, a standing point. And one particular adjustment that could make it palatable, maybe, you know, it would help this year if the annual cut was 45 million, would be to amend the letter to just say, change it to this year to 45 million cubic meters, and then, but maintain the process after this year to what the forester is saying, because this is asking for 45 million cubic meters for this year and then indefinitely, and the hope is to create environment for investment into the forest industry, because now there's a guaranteed timber supply, but it's completely not acknowledging all the other work that's saying, hey, you know, if we don't adjust our annual allowable cut, we're going to have increased forest fire problems. We're going to run out of valuable timber at a quicker rate, so that, you know, in 10 years there's going to be very little supply, and we're going to really have to shut down the mills indefinitely because we've never taken the time to adjust our sales. And the longer we wait to adjust our sales, it's just more pain put off later on. And so, yeah, vote goes where it goes, but I'm not in support of signing this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Eastmere, then Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you. Because I raised the point earlier about AVICC, the convention this weekend, and combining efforts on lobbying around support for the forestry industry, I just want to highlight that there is a resolution, R44, on forestry industry and sustainable fiber, and that came from the city of Port Alberni. And so I just want to highlight that there is something coming forward that will be debated by Vancouver Island and coastal communities this weekend, and I think that this piece could be something that communities could really rally around and lobby the government on. And so I think that we're jumping the gun unnecessarily with this letter when we could have a much stronger and more unified voice post AVICC on this.
Thank you. Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you. This will be my last. I just want to say I did find the minister's mandate letter, and they're exactly the 2 points. It says, work with all partners, including Indigenous governments, toward ensuring a sustainable land base to enable harvest of 45 million cubic meters per year while fulfilling our commitment to protect old growth. And then also work with your minister, your colleagues, and First Nations to ensure the prompt, efficient, and effective delivery of permits required by industry. So all we're doing is emphasizing what's already in the mandate letter, saying we support the mandate letter. You've got the support of our community to please do this for our communities. So I can send you guys a mandate letter if you want, but it's an easy Google. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I was going to point out what Councillor Armstrong has already pointed out. The exact quote is contained in the body of the last paragraph on page 1 of the letter, and I will repeat it. Your mandate letter from Premier Davey includes as priority, quote, to work with all partners, including Indigenous governments, toward ensuring a sustainable land base to enable harvest of 45 million cubic meters per year while fulfilling our commitment to protect old growth. Budget 2025, they predict only 30 million cubic meters will be harvested on Crown land, further declined to 29 million in 2027. Note the AAC was more than 60 million cubic meters in 2024. With respect, I appreciate that people bring certain views to this, but let me try and put it in practical terms as the letter makes the statement fairly clear. North Cowichan gets 5.5 million a year in property taxes. Harmac alone pays the city 2.3 million a year. You're being asked to allow me to sign a letter in conjunction with the mayor of what I would describe, and he may take this the wrong way, as a lefty-greeny council, sign a letter that simply says commit to a 45 million a year cubic meter cut, which is what the Premier is directing his Minister of Forests to do. Oh, and streamline the permit and regulatory process for processing timber harvesting, because one of the reasons we're not getting anywhere as near the annual allowable cut is because the government is so bloody slow in getting the permits out the door, causing a lack of fiber supply, which is threatening the viability of our mills, including Harmac, at the very time when they're facing incredible economic pressures. I've said it before, I'll say it again briefly. Either we will continue to harvest trees in British Columbia, in Canada in general, with environmental regulation and union family supporting jobs, or you will see the need for world fiber grow in other places where there's no or little environmental regulation, where the working conditions are horrible, where you don't have a work-safe PC behind your back, and where, by the way, it won't be our neighbors who will be out of a job if things go bad. It'll be them as well. With great respect, this is a simple letter of support. It's not asking much. It's coming from a sister municipality who sees a need for this. I would hope that council could find it in its heart to support what is a pretty modest request of government. Comply with the Premier's mandate letter and streamline your regulatory process so we can let people work and earn a living, and pay the taxes, which help pay for the salaries of everybody in this room tonight who's working for the city of Nanaimo. All those in favor of the motion? And those opposed? Councillors Armstrong, Hemmens, Mayor Krogh? In favor. Councillors Thorpe and Perino, and those opposed? Councillors Eastmere, Gesselbrock, Brown, and Manley. The motion carries. Thank you very much. Now, if we can get on, the next one is Councillor Manley, motion City of Nanaimo and Regional District of Nanaimo Synergism Public Works Yard updates. Councillor Manley.
I'd like to move the motion. If I have a seconder, I'll speak to it.
Seconded, Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you. We've been hearing from taxpayers concerns about the public works yard, the cost of these facilities. We're also hearing from taxpayers paying for RDN facilities that they're concerned about costs. We have two levels of government that are closely tied together. We are the biggest payers of the Southern Transit service, and there's a need for expanded facilities for buses, for repair shops, mechanic shops, for storage, for parking, etc. And I just think it's a wise idea to at least have the conversation and see what synergies we can work together between these two levels of government to see if there's ways that we can save taxpayers dollars by working together and developing a property that makes sense for both entities. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Perino.
Thank you, Your Worship, and a question through you to Mr. Sims. Mr. Sims, this seems very obvious to me that the work that Councillor Manley has talked about, possible coordination between ourselves and the RDN, is something that you've obviously already done.
Your Worship, it's true. We have been in discussions with RDN, and the size of their required size would, to service their fleet would be significant, and probably I can't speak to the size, but I know it's quite a bit more significant than where they're at. We haven't sort of considered specifics like perhaps adding a few bays to our mechanics or our fleet maintenance facility, and that may be a possibility, but those are the sorts of conversations that we can have and do. I would note that the current Public Works facility is tight for space. We've optimized it as just part of regular operations. We've shrunk spoil piles and gravel piles and stockpiles as much as we can. The other thing that I've learned from the RDN is that they're on a different time horizon, so we might be out of step to provide them with much value, or it would create a delay for our own project. And I think I'd be concerned about the actual cost. Nevertheless, I think it always bears, reconsideration and just being aware and conscious of what their needs are at the same time. I'm just not convinced that they would be interested in having if we offered them a few bays, for an example, whether they'd be interested in having a fragmented facility, a larger storage in one location and repairs in another. And the infrastructure requirements to support both might be significant, and I'm thinking in terms of hydro. We're also looking at electrification of our own fleet, and I think RDN is in the same boat. So that's another consideration. And just there's a bunch of things going on, and I wouldn't want to discount the possibility of working together, because they're, we'd like to continue with that. They were a number of years ago quite interested in sharing office space, and we were out of sync on timing. Their office space needs were more immediate than we were able to provide.
Okay.
So that's just a bit of comment. I hope that's helpful.
I won't be voting in favor of this. To me, this is stepping out of our role as a council, getting definitely into the weeds and telling them how they need to be reporting back to us on, upgrades that I know they've already worked on. I can't see the need for this, and I don't want to waste any more staff time, so I'll be voting against it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sims, my understanding is that the amount of land they would need for what transit's going to require, the regional district, is substantially equal to all of the land we have on the Lavio Road site. Is that fair comment?
Well, I'm not sure how much public information is available on the RGN's future plans, but I gather it's quite significant, and it could be approaching the same size, yes.
Thank you. I mean, look, you know, it's a lovely idea to exploit some synergies, et cetera, but it just strikes me, as Mr. Sims has pointed out, that we have two horses. One of them may be going fast and one of them may be going slow, and we want to try and tie them together in some kind of a team in the belief that it'll get the public wagon there faster. I don't see that there's any evidence that that's going to be the case, and we've certainly never had a request formally from the Regional District of Nanaimo to the City of Nanaimo to Council to do this, and I appreciate the well-intentioned motives behind Councillor Manley bringing this forward, but I can't support it. If there's no further questions, all those in favor of Councillor Manley's motion, Councillor Eastmere, Gesselbrock, Brown, and Manley. Those opposed, Councillors Armstrong, Hemmens, Mayor Crowe, Councillor Thorpe, Councillor Perino. Motion is defeated. Thank you. The next, Councillor Manley motion, remedia's usage of electronic devices during meetings. Councillor Manley.
I'll move the motion. If somebody seconds it, I'll speak to it.
Seconded, Councillor Eastmere. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Yeah, I think this is just requesting that staff look at options for accreditation for media representatives. I've looked at a few different sites. The Government of Canada, Global Affairs Canada has, you know, steps that they take that include traditional media, but independent media that also publish on things like Substack or by other means. We're seeing a lot of changes to the media landscape, but there is a way to tell whether somebody actually does research and provides commentary that's reasonable. And I think it's important to have a process in place for accrediting media. It's not that I don't trust your worship's judgment in providing that guidance, but I think that it's better that it's independent and that there are you know, guidelines that are independent of individual decision-making powers within mayor and council. Thank you.
Any discussion on Councillor Manley's motion? If I may ask a couple of questions of staff, Ms. Gurry, and it just occurred to me I may be discussing things that might constitute in-camera matters, so I'm rather in a difficult spot here. But what is the practice in other communities, perhaps you can advise, with respect to this? Is it left to the mayor to make the decision about who's a journalist, or can you comment on that one way or the other?
Thank you, Worship. So honestly, to that answer, no, I don't. I'm not sure of other municipalities. Just recently, today, I was looking at our corporate officer's handbook that says you may want to amend council procedure bylaws to include provisions such as we have proposed. And there was the Colwood, District of Colwood, and Saanich that had reference points, but I have not seen any bylaws that have this or know of that.
Thank you. For what it's worth, I'm not going to support this. Let's get the bylaw in place that has raised this concern. We'll deal with it. If people are unhappy with the way things are happening or someone feels aggrieved, then let's not be at this present time a solution in search of a problem that may not in fact occur or exist. The motion is on the floor. All those in favor? Councillors Eastmere, Gesselbrock, Hemmens, Brown, and Manley. Those opposed? Councillors Armstrong, Mayor Crowe, Councillor Thorpe, Councillor Perino. Motion carries. Thank you. The next is bylaws. Council Procedure Bylaw Amendment Bylaw 2025, number 7272.05. And this was deferred from the regular council meeting. Anyone care to move the recommended motion?
Yes, sir.
Or it's deferred, actually. Pardon me, the bylaw. Sorry. Councillor Thorpe, you have to move.
Thanks, Your Worship. It's a bylaw, so
Yeah.
I will
Yes, please.
move that Council Procedure Bylaw Amendment Bylaw 2025, number 7272.05, a bylaw to include provisions associated with delegations, inappropriate behavior, electronic devices, and signs in council and committee meetings, and minor housekeeping amendments be adopted.
Seconder, Councillor Brown. Any discussion on this? Councillor Brown?
Thanks, Your Worship. And then, sorry, my Wi-Fi cut just as this was coming, or the reading was being given, and then it was deferred last time. So I think this is an important bylaw to adopt. First, I will say I think Councillor Manley's motion is a thoughtful addition because taken together, I think it matches the intention, which is a suite of regulations here, when taken together, define how conduct will occur in city facilities, but also in these council chambers. And I think that's absolutely crucial because I think this has been mischaracterized as something to protect staff or something that infringes on people's charter rights and freedoms. Fundamentally, that is not the concern of these bylaws. These bylaws are how a governing body chooses to exercise the processes in which it conducts its business. That is established in many other places. Parliament, the legislature, courts, and it's there for a reason, because fundamentally, governing or judgment or anything like that is in the business of making decisions and weighing information, and those environments need to be free of any sort of intimidation. This is especially true in the courts. And I hear chuckle, and I'm not going to really engage, but I do want to highlight some key things that have happened that have driven some of these changes. We'd have had individuals in these chambers that come and videotape staff and provide commentary using defamatory comments, posting them online to undermine staff. And I'm not going to get into the details of what those were, but it's completely inappropriate. I've also seen videos of staff members outside of these chambers, in their workplace, where individuals have gone, taken video, posted it on a social media forum that is monitored or created by people that attend here and email council, and it's left to sit there as people provide comments. Again, inappropriate, derogatory, completely out of line.
Mr. Prop, be quiet.
So these come down to essentially defining what we think is appropriate and how this environment should exist, free of intimidation and attempts of bullying and manipulating decisions. I appreciate the amendment to provide some clarity for reporters and journalists and a policy of accreditation. I had no concerns that it would be abused, but I do think having clear-cut policies on important matters like this can help guidance and enable better meeting management by providing clear support for the chair and providing clear support for individuals. Happy to see that come forward. I don't think these need to be delayed until this report is considered, because at the end of the day, if His Worship was to abuse his powers, we already as a council have the ability to correct that, regardless of any policy in place. We can remove the chair if we need to. So those options exist. I'm glad to see that coming forward for additional clarity, and I hope council will focus on what these bylaws actually are, not arguments that I don't think are, I think that are, the sentiment is sound, but they ultimately are misguided in what the law is and the charter is, and that we can make it very clear what we expect this space to be, and that is a space that's welcome for everybody, that supports democratic governance and decision-making or representation from the public free of manipulation. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Eastmere, please.
Thank you. I don't understand the rush to adopt this without having a process in place for ensuring that journalists have access to be able to do their jobs in this chamber without specific permission from the chair. I'm interested in passing this bylaw when that is included as part of it. I'm not seeing the need to rush this. We have practices in place where the chair can make sure that the council chamber is a safe and respectful place as it is. So why not wait until we have included a piece so that it doesn't look like we are infringing on the rights of journalists to be able to do their job.
Thank you. Councillor Gesselbrock, please.
Thanks. On this matter, whether to pass the bylaw now or to wait 4 weeks until the amendment to allow journalists to not get permission from the mayor, I think it's, for me, 6 in one, half a dozen the other. It doesn't really matter. I think what really has bothered me was when I went online and I saw a staff person on Facebook that was being videotaped by a member of the public, and then the comments underneath it that were really intimidating. It bothered me, one, that an individual would do this, and in fact, it's actually really been 1-2 individuals that have spurred this whole debate and bringing in the bylaws and restricting the use of recording devices. And what saddens me mostly is that there are Facebook pages that a lot of people participate on that are moderated by individuals that speak regularly to council that are allowing this type of intimidation of our staff. And when I think of being in charge of the city and responsible for the work environment, to think that staff would have to have somebody come in and put a videotape in front of their face and then posted to 2,000 people, I think, are on this one website, the City of Nanaimo Oversight Committee, of 2,000 people that they don't know, and then having complete strangers make intimidating remarks, hurtful remarks that are completely not based on any understanding of this staff person. That's a horrible environment to have to come work in. And council's stuck in a position of now having to deal with this and not allow this type of behavior to happen in the workplace. I don't think it'd be allowed in any workplace in Nanaimo. And now we're stuck here wasting a lot of time debating really over 1 or 2 individuals. And I don't think that is reasonable. And I really hope that not just council, but the entire community takes a bit more ownership of the type of civility environment that we work in and call out this type of behavior and just don't allow it. Don't allow it to be spread over mediums that nobody has control over. And so for the matter for our staff, I would like to get this bylaw put in place right away to make a very clear message that it's unacceptable to treat people that are working the public service in that way. And I am 100% certain that we will make sure that there's no obstruction for journalists to report on this. Most of the fact, there probably is not any trouble of other people reporting video, but there is 1 or 2 individuals that unfortunately have demonstrated over more than a 6-month to a year period that that level of responsibility and maturity cannot be met. And so I would like to get this passed now and make it very clear that for journalists in our community, there's no problem for you to be here, and it'll be very easy for you, even in the interim while we don't have the amendment put in. But council wants to make extra sure that it's written in stone in our bylaws that there will be no fettering of journalistic, freedom of speech in our chambers. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Gurry, did you want to say something? I thought all right.
No.
Thank you very much. We're on to Councillor Hemmens, and then Thorpe, and then Manley.
Thank you. I'll be brief. I think Councillor Gesselbrock said everything I wanted to say. This bylaw, unfortunately, is necessary. I regret that we're creating bylaws to deal with a few inappropriate individuals, but here we are. I think it's important to get the bylaw in place for workplace culture. And I feel that Councillor Manley's amendment that was just passed is a nice complement. And I trust you, Mayor Krogh, that you will treat the media appropriately in the interim before we have this amendment in place. So, yeah, happy to see this go forward. Unfortunate that we're having to do this, but here we are. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you, Your Worship. Very briefly, yes, I agree with the comments of Councillor Hemmons, and I'm pleased to say that on this issue, I also agree with the comments of Councillor Geselbrock. I think it is unfortunate, but we do need this bylaw. That's been proven, and the sooner we put it in place, the better. I think this council needs to make a statement that we are supporting our staff, and yes, by all means, we can amend it as we move forward and make sure that the rights of legitimate journalists are protected. But let's by all means get this bylaw put in place now and not waste any more time about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Eastmere.
Thank you. I have a question about how this is actually functionally going to be enforced during a council meeting, and I have a question about whether this extends to all city buildings or if it's the electronic devices ban just has to do with council and committee meetings, because that was my understanding of it. And then functionally, how does it get enforced with people in the audience bringing cell phones into the room? Is it just that electronic devices are not allowed in the gallery at all? And what's the process on that? Do we have people leaving them at the door, or are you allowed to have them in your hand at all? You're passing a bylaw, I think, is also like functionally impossible to enforce, and I don't think that's good practice.
Ms. Gurry, please.
Thank you, Worship. So this bylaw, council procedure bylaw, applies to council meetings only. There was already provisions in the Respectful Spaces bylaw for recording, et cetera, in other city facilities and workplaces where it is allowed with permission and consent. This bylaw, how it would be enforced is basically through the chair. It's another tool in the chair's toolbox to have when somebody is obviously recording. The chair can point to the procedure bylaw and point that they're not allowed to be doing so. So it's not no recording devices, it's not anything like that. It's just when it's been used for intimidation purposes, as outlined in the bylaw itself, the chair has that additional tool in his toolbox.
Okay, I guess I'm really uncertain of how the judgment gets made, whether it's for intimidation purposes or not. You could be quietly recording in the audience and then do something with that material later on. So I can't support this, and I'm disappointed we're going down this route, and I think the optics are not good.
Just to clarify, sorry, Chair, it's any recordings in the chambers. We had that conversation way back when with Ms. Robertson as she came back and clarified that it's not subjective. It's any person in the audience holding up their phone recording is not will not be permitted.
Councillor Armstrong.
And just for clarification on that, so if we have awards coming out, are you going to allow it then?
Again, as currently as it stands right now and going forward with the media provisions amended into the bylaw, the chair can allow and make exceptions. So the chair would make those exceptions.
Well, I'm staying opposed to this. I think it's far overreach. I think we're dealing with an issue that it's not the recording that's the issue, it's what's done with it afterwards. And there's criminal code provisions for a lot of that stuff. So, yeah, no, and I think it's going to be a big issue when you start getting to arenas and stuff and people are taking pictures and my kids in there want it taken down, all that kind of stuff. So sorry, I just can't support it as written. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Manley.
Thank you. I am going to support this right now. I think we have a duty of care to staff, and it's unfortunate the behavior that they've had to deal with by certain individuals. I'm not sure how enforceable or easy to enforce it will be, but I do think that at this stage it is a necessary thing, and I do trust the mayor or the chair of committees to make appropriate decisions around actual journalists when they're in here doing recordings until the bylaw is amended at a later date. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Bylaws on the floor. No further discussion. All those in favor? Councillors Geselbrock, Hemmons, Mayor Krogh, Councillor Thorpe, Councillor Perino, Councillor Brown, Councillor Manley. Those opposed, Councillors Armstrong and Eastmere. Bylaw carries. Thank you very much. The next is Respectful Spaces Amendment Bylaw 2025, number 7381.01. Councillor Thorpe.
Thank you. I'll move that Respectful Places Amendment Bylaw 2025, number 7381.01, a bylaw to include electronic devices and other housekeeping amendments be adopted.
Seconded, Councillor Perino. Discussion? Not seeing any. All those in favor? Councillor, please keep your hands up, folks. Councillor Gesselbrock, Councillor Hemmens, Mayor Krogh, Councillor Thorpe, Councillor Perino, Councillor Brown, Councillor Manley. Those opposed, Councillors Eastmere and Armstrong. Motion bylaw carries. Thank you very much. Question period, Ms. Gurry. The first is Jeff Annesley, 10C1. Mr. Annesley, please.
Hello. Just want to have a couple of quick questions about this. First of all, what, if you could give me a summary, what specific data is going to be collected under this?
Sorry, say that again?
Under the city monitoring engagement, what specific data is going to be collected under?
It's 10C1, City Plan Monitoring Engagement. Mr. Lindsay.
I'm sorry, we can provide the entire list. It has been previously approved by council, but it includes such things as canopy cover, tree cover in the community, GHGs, greenhouse gas production, efforts on water conservation, those types of measures.
Okay.
Yeah, and sorry, Your Worship, Ms. Gurry just mentioned to me, it is contained on our website right now. People can take a look at the.
It's on the website, Mr. Anderson.
Okay, and just to follow up to that, in the documentation, I believe that Ms. Tan provided on the 24th, she said, or it said that you're making 5 staff members to organize this group. And it would liaison with other staff members, some people in the, some citizens, but also it mentioned partner organizations, and I'm just wondering what those partner organizations are.
I'm going to guess, Mr. Lindsay, it would be organizations that are providing services to the city or something of that nature. Ms. Gurry, Mr. Lindsay?
I'm sorry, Your Worship, I'd have to go back and rewatch or refamiliarize myself with the comments that were made at the time. There was a number of stakeholder groups that assisted at the time that those targets and indicators were prepared through Reimagine. Off the top of my head, I'm sorry, I can't think of them right now, but I'd be happy to provide that to Mr. Ainsley.
Mr. Annesley, perhaps you could send an email to Mr. Lindsay tonight or tomorrow, and we can get you something more specific.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. The next is 16C, Mr. Hula.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate all the debate you had on this one. It's basically, since citizen journalists on Substack and X and TikTok and Rumble, they currently are getting many more viewers than a lot of mainstream media, and the numbers keep changing, like more for independent and less for mainstream. So the whole censorship thing is really a concern, because it sort of leads towards, does council think they're above reproach? Like, that's a fine line to say, if you get to decide what's intimidation and what's honest criticism, and if it's just one person deciding, well, I don't like what you're saying, so you're not an independent journalism. So in that 16C, where they say to do a certification process, it would be really appropriate if some independent journalists were part of the creation of the certification process to give it a balanced approach. And again, if it's one person, that's sort of a totalitarian government, whether it's municipal or federal or any level. So from a perspective of
question here, Mr.
citizens,
Is there a
will
question?
that be included? Will you include independent journalists as part of the creation of the certification process?
Mr. Hula, it says it's a staff prepare report, accreditation, media, and independent journalists may the use of blah, blah, blah. We'll see what the report provides.
Right, the report itself, will it include independent journalists as part of gathering the information for the report? Because if it's just staff doing it, they're not independent journalists themselves, so they wouldn't have that input as part of the creation.
Mr. Hula, the motion was direct staff prepare report outlining options for an amendment to include a certification process, accreditation to media representatives and independent journalists to permit the use of electronic devices. They will survey what other cities have done, I am sure, and consult with various people. Councillor Manley, did you wish to say something?
Yeah, I mean, there's processes in place with other levels of government, and if you want to see what some of those things look like, you can go to Global Affairs Canada for a good example, and they allow independent journalists. So what I've asked staff for is to just do a little bit of research and provide a report and come back to council with that report so we can make a decision. No decision has been made yet, but there are other options to look at and other situations. So as an independent journalist, I've been accredited by the federal government on a number of occasions. So.
Well, the issue with that is this current federal government has a history of being very limited as to what they consider journalism. So the problem is, again, right back to them. If that's going to be your default,
Point of order,
to a
Your
federal government that is already super
Please.
restrictive.
Mr. Hula, please, Councillor Brown.
Yeah, the question was answered. It's not debate period.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hula, you have a question on 12B?
Yep. I like the idea of repealing the bylaws that are obsolete. So there's two with that are of particular interest. Maybe the consideration of rescinding or canceling the Global Covenant of Mayors, which avoids the optics, at least, of a conflict of interest, whether serving the United Nations Global Covenant of Mayors or the citizens of Nanaimo. And the other one be to consider getting rid of the climate change emergency that we're under, which never had a mandate or any evidence to support it and still does not. So my question is, will some of those things be considered?
Councillor Hemmons.
No.
Didn't think so, but thank you.
Thank you very much. Motion for adjournment. Moved Councillor Perino, seconded Councillor Thorpe. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. Motion carries.